Okay, good morning everyone. Nice to see you all. And welcome to the COAST Final Conference, hosted by Oulu University of Applied Science. My name is Ragnheiður Þórarinsdóttir. I'm the rector of the Agriculture University of Iceland and the coordinator of the COAST project. And I will be chairing the conference today. The COAST project is funded by NPA, Northern Peripheral Arctic Program, since 2020. And we have 5 partners: the Agriculture University of Iceland, Oulu University of Applied Sciences, and then University College Cork and Mayo County Council in Ireland, and Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust from Northern Ireland. So happy to be with you here today. We will present the main results from 4 case studies in the 4 countries, and also launch the main results here later today. But first I will give the word to Marit Alikoski, the acting manager of Halioto. Please, very welcome.
Thank you. I would like to also welcome all of you very warmly here to Hailuoto. We're very pleased to have you here and that COAST ending seminar. First, I want to tell you that Jukka Savilampi and Ari-Pekka Sirviö, OMK Cultural Unit communication experts, they have produced an excellent video report of Hailuoto past, and you can enjoy that video report during today and tomorrow. Well, my role is that I'm happy to tell you about Hailuoto and Hailuoto municipality present. In practice, Hailuoto means everyday luxury and life in national landscape. We are the only municipality in Finland that whole classified as national landscape. In Hailuoto, your experience and senses past, present and future at the same time. The Hailuoto lifestyle is a fascinating mix, strong connected nature, traditions and modern lifestyle. That's something which make Hailuoto very unique and picturesque. Hailuoto's unique nature is conserved for future generations also by Natura, nature conservation programs. Hailuoto is also a very famous bird island. We have observed about 340 different species of birds, including many rarities, and we are one of the favorites of bird watchers. Hailuoto has been also been strongly known as an island of artists over 100 years. We have very active and diverse cultural life, especially in summer, but art exhibitions and cultural events are taking place all around the year. Our nature inspires so many artists. We are also involved in the EU's Oulu 2026 Capital Culture Project. We value our cultural heritage very much. It's visible and it's part of our everyday life. Tikkuröijy, plover of wool, our traditional knitting is one example of that. Inhabitants, we have nowadays 950, and in summer times we have nearly 2,000 vacation part-time inhabitants. We have lost permanent residents for a long time, But now the new wave is coming. The change of corona and change as general in our environment, operating environment are influencing that rural natural environments are rising as a living place. They offer us a state of being, high quality nature-based everyday life, freedom and safety and security experiences. Fishing has traditionally been very important part of local life in Hailuoto. Today most local work in services, but primary production is also still in important role. Marjaniemi, where we are now, is a central fishing port in Botnian Bay. In Hailuoto municipality, we have our own kindergarten, 40 places, and primary school, 90 places. Our early childhood education is very strongly child-oriented and also widely implemented in our natural environment. They can breathe and enjoy the nature. In Hailuoto kindergarten, you can also climb into trees and we can learn to make it safety. Our public services are comprehensive and high quality. All daily needs services are available here in Hailuoto. We have own municipal health center, dental clinic, senior clinic, and sort of. Our local democracy is strong and active. We have new future development plan Hailuoto 2040. We have created it together with University of Oulu, the architect part. Our municipality is in active cooperation with universities and polytechnic, like one of our basic activities. That what we also done and do with Coast successfully. Please warmly welcome to Hailuoto and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marit. Next, I have the pleasure to welcome the Director of School of Engineering and Natural Resources at the Oulu University of Applied Sciences and Adjunct Professor in Industrial Engineering and Management at the University of Oulu, Mr. Ville Iso-Herranen. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone here on the Hailuoto and also online. Great to have you here also from my behalf. I was just discussing with Outi, who's been with the project from Oulu University of Applied Sciences, so this is the first time that you're seeing each other face to face in this project. So I think that's something that we need to give a bit of applause to each other. We know that this corona phase has been longer than we ever expected when it started in beginning of 2020. Here in Finland and in our school it was March 2020 that we closed our campus and go to distant work and distant education, and now we are in 22 June. So it has been a long period, but it's great that we are able to see each other and come together. And I think that's one of the core issues of these kind of collaboration projects from the Interact behalf, but also from the schools and the research institutes and municipalities and organizations working this. So we can meet each other and build bridges and collaborations and let's say friendships also to endure after the projects. But few words about where we are. So you have found here those who are present, but those online. So this is an international slide set, so you can figure out that we are close to Oulu, Oulu here and then here. But just to highlight that we are in the north part, and this Interact program. that is really designed to be in the Arctic periphery areas. It's good that we are finding each other. So usually the traveling roads are coming from here to south, but we can also go and have networks within the Arctic regions. So I think this is the greatness of this kind of programs of NPA, that we find each other in the Arctic regions, that we are facing the similar challenges, similar, let's say, with the climate, with the sparsely populated areas that was reflected here by the municipality, that we need to have the, let's say, the development of the businesses, development of the agriculture, development of the people's surroundings also in these areas. So here we are. As you have noted, those who have been in Finland now visiting, we are the happiest nation in the world, many times in a row. So you can see. So we are quite modest about it. But anyways, we are the happiest. So you have been now, when you have visited here, the happiest nations in the world. But I guess here's a more fundamental comes to also to that concept of our organizations, our culture, and of the, let's say, one core thing is the trust between different players. So we have trust in collaboration with the government, with the officials, with the universities, with the companies, and I think that can be reflected in this index. It's a lot of trust between the organizations. And I think that that is something that we can even be more prouder than now what is happening in the world with the Ukrainian crisis. Being proud that we have and still continue to have this moment of this era of peace, and that peace is also something that we are starting to value more. That has been and that's also something that we have to highlight, that we have a lot of good in the organizations, good in the structure of our society, that we are able to live and do business, do research, do science in these Arctic areas. So that's something to keep in mind. Then a bit of our School of Engineering and Natural Resources. We are located in Linnanmaa campus. This is a new campus. We actually moved in August 2020. So like we closed the previous campus due to Corona, did some packing, go to summer, and then we go to new campus. So actually we have never started the season, the coming 22 season with the students will be the first. We hope that we're able to start directly with the not this Corona, like a distant work, just distant education. But we have a new campus, totally renovated, new facilities. So this is you can see this white part in this big campus area. We have about 10,000 students, employees in our University of Applied Sciences, but in this area more than 20,000, because this is also a campus for University of Oulu. So we have a joint campus of the two universities, and also there's a research agencies, VTT, an Institute for Natural Resources, Luke, Syke, this kind of governmental agencies that we have. So we have a big campus and lots of also jobs, industry around the campus. And then we have also a second campus that is based in Kontinkangas, that is more health sciences, social education, and there's a university hospital in this area. So we have quite big campus also there. So two campuses and very, let's say, vibrant society, also relying to the health and social care. Few numbers about OAMK. I said already 10,000 community, but more important for us that we are the most attractive university in the north. So we have a lot of applicants per our open vacancies. So you can see the numbers that 6.3 per each open seat that we have for students. So a lot of applicants, and of course the most popular ones are the healthcare, nursing, and pre-medic degrees. But that's important for us. And also you can see that we have close to 30,000 alumni already graduated from our University of Applied Sciences. So we have a big community of already graduated students from our school and university. So currently we have both. We have bachelor and master degree programs available in our university, and that's something that we can have this continuous learning. So after bachelor, 2 years of work experience, you can come and do master's degree in our university. So, few words about the Finnish educational system. We have both the universities and University of Applied Sciences. And just to recap that we are one of the 23 applied sciences universities in Finland. One of the biggest, like you see from our campus and the size of the community that we are having. And a lot of our people that are actually graduating are employed. About 80% will stay within the region of Northern Ostrobothnia or the Northern Finland. So we are really the university that educates the people that are employed also in the region. So that's important for us, and that's one of our missions, what we are doing, helping local organizations and companies to have the workforce. Few highlights about if you are interested in studying English or come to Finland to study, we have these are the available English degree programs. So the language to study is English, and of course we have the Finnish programs. But these are the ones to be studying in English, and we are actually bringing more in mechanical engineering. Next 23 is going to be English program, and perhaps we are thinking about something in the bioeconomy, let's say also English in future, but that's some plans. So let's see what we're gonna have. And those are usually that there's a fee for if you're coming outside of European Union, but then we have grants for those students, so we have grant system available. And a bit about the opening seats. I was saying in natural resources about 85, close to 700 in engineering. Engineering being the biggest, and with the healthcare and social care. So about the Oulu region, like you said, we are the happiest. We're also the fastest growing in Finland. Been many years actually related to the population size in Europe. Oulu region has been growing very well. There's a good employment situation. I think the last that I heard from the development agencies that we have about 6,500 open jobs at the moment, and only 2,500 people looking for jobs. So there's more jobs available than there are actually people applying for those jobs. So economy is in a good situation at the moment, and we can see it also from our students. They are finding very well their jobs after the graduation. And just to recap shortly, like what I started with the collaboration, it's good to also summarize with that. We have had this Oulu Innovation Alliance that is actually bringing together universities, research agencies, government research agencies, and also from the second sector organizations. So this is something that we are also proud of, that we can collaborate together and combine our knowledge in different areas. And finding, for example, this kind of project that we are having now, that we are using the funding opportunities from the European Union, from the cohesion funding, either structural funding or this kind of Interreg cross-board funding. So these are important for us to also develop our own region, and the connections that we are also having here, so international connections. So those are important for us. But that's my introduction. It's really great to be here, and looking forward also, as I understand, this is the closing, but I hope it's also start for something. So meeting you here, what will be the next project? I think we will discuss during these days, and then going forward is so how to continue the good ideas that we are presented here. You can see the drones here flying. I heard that there's a flying weather here today, so it's been checked that there's no, hopefully not too much rain or wind. So that's one of the technologies that we have been developing the Oulu University Applied Sciences for a long time. So bit of demonstration on those, and have a nice seminar, good discussions, and good questions and good interactions. And I think when you are here in Finland for maybe the first time or second time, you are waiting to come back. So now you know Hailuoto is a good place to come back, and whole our Arctic regions, there's a great nature, and take your family and come here, and take your friends and come and visit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ville, for the informative and warm welcoming. This is actually the third project I'm working on together with your university, and they have all been very successful. So thank you. Next speaker is Elisa Mikkolainen. She will give a presentation on voluntary cooperation, restoring the good ecological balance of the Baltic Sea. Elisa is Project Director of Maritime Affairs at Baltic Sea Action Group. She has a long career in commercial shipping and has seen how shipping has changed and the industry's own accountability has increased. Much is still to be done, especially in the Baltic Sea, which is one of the world's most navigated marine areas and at the same time an extremely sensitive marine environment. So welcome, Elisa.
Thank you, Rangheirur. So, hello everybody from my side as well. I'm very happy to be here. First of all, to be in Hailuoto. This is my second time here on this beautiful island. This is maybe the closest to paradise where you can get, I would say. And I'm very sorry for you guys who are here online that you missed this beautiful setting and the place where we are located right now. So I'm glad to be here, as also for the reason that I will hear then about the results of the COAST project, which I have not followed so closely, so I'm very happy to let's say join at this stage where you can see the ripe fruit, so to say, on the table. But I'm here to tell you about voluntary actions, what we can do regarding Baltic Sea, how we can save the Baltic Sea by voluntary actions. And as the chair told, my background is in commercial shipping, so I'm not a biologist, or I don't know too much about all the stuff that happens below the sea level. The next speaker will tell you more about that, but my point is now to tell you about the Baltic Sea Action Group and the work we do to save the Baltic Sea. So we are a private foundation. We have been working already now since 2008. We are a group of about 25 people based in Espoo, Finland. And we get our funding from two sources mainly. We get public funding from all kinds of EU projects, and also private funding from private foundations in Finland mainly. And then we get donations from private persons and also from companies. We have a very close cooperation with different corporations, which then donate money to us, or they make a commitment to us where they commit to voluntary actions which we coordinate. And the Baltic Sea, as we all know, or if we don't know, now I will tell you, the challenges of the Baltic Sea are quite severe. We have been burdening the Baltic Sea for a long time with nutrients, meaning that the eutrophication is our biggest problem in the Baltic Sea. And also with the climate change, we get all kinds of, the seas are getting warmer, and this increases the eutrophication. We are losing on biodiversity, and then we also have some harmful and dangerous substances, for example, from shipping, and I will tell you more about that later. And as we know, these things are quite, or these problems are quite holistic, so to say. If the sea is healthy, it can take all kinds of blows, so to say, if the sea is getting warmer or if the climate is changing. But if the sea is already in a bad state, then the consequences are even stronger. And then on the other side as well, then the climate change causes changes in the sea, which then increase the for example, eutrophication if the sea is getting warmer, and so on. So all these problems are intertwined, and they are not that easy to solve. But we have some serious actions what we try to do on voluntary basis. We at Baltic Sea Action Group, we have 3 teams we are concentrating on. Obviously there would be a lot more to do, but since we have limited resources, we have now tried to focus on 3 themes. The first is related to agriculture and the nutrient circulation. The second one is responsible shipping, which I'm in charge for. We try to mitigate the nutrient discharges from maritime traffic. And the third one is biodiversity, where we try to protect marine biodiversity. And I will give some examples on each of these 3 themes. But first I would like to tell you how we do this. This is common for all the themes. So we consider ourselves as catalyst and matchmaker. As I told you, we are 25 people. We cannot do anything by ourselves. We need lots of parties to join us. We do a lot of work with companies, researchers, and also on the let's say official side, authorities, politicians, and we try to collect all the parties together to make the difference. So we take the initiatives and we bring it further, we combine forces, we invite parties to join us, and then we try to make a change. And as I said, we have commitments with companies who, commitment to us means that a company, for example, makes a commitment for, let's say, it's normally several years, and they commit to let's say, improving their own work, the way they work, and in a way that it benefits the Baltic Sea. And for example, quite a recent examples are from the agricultural side and also from the shipping side. We got one of the biggest forest or paper companies in Finland, UPM, joining our maritime action, which I will tell you later about. And they, for example, made a commitment for 5 years, and they will then report what they have done. So it's not just the empty speech, but it's also very much about deeds and reporting what they have done. And then all our work is so to say, focused on systemic change. So we don't try to, let's say, we are not looking for quick let's say, magic tricks, but we know that there has to be a systemic change in the agriculture, for example, in shipping. There are no quick fixes, and therefore we try to combine the parties to make a systemic change in, for example, in the way we, for example, let's say how agriculture is carried out. I don't know the word, but I will tell you later on about that. And then we lobby. Obviously, we need to talk to the politicians and the people who make the high level. For example, they take the initiatives and then they make the decisions. So if we talk about the agriculture first, why it is important that we actually talk about the soil in the first place is that the soil today, the way we produce food is means that we release carbon into the atmosphere. And the way we want to change it is that the soil can store the carbon. So we talk about carbon sequestration. And how this can be done? This is a simple fact, is that the biodiversity is in the soil. And if we take care about the soil and all the microbes and fungi and whatever there is in the soil, all the little tiny creatures, then the soil is healthy, and it improves the biodiversity as well. And I think now I would need some technical assistance. I think this is the last one. Yes, thanks. Thank you. Yeah. So we have an initiative called Carbon Action, which in short means that the agriculture is done in a way that the soil keeps the carbon, or actually it how would I say? It stores the carbon and produces safer crops, and reduces less emissions to water bodies. Here we have two pictures which are from the same field, before Carbon Action and after, meaning that first you see a very ill-looking plant. Lots of, let's say, there's the earth, the soil is packed, and there are not too many roots. Whereas on the right side, when this field has been, or the food has been produced in a healthier way, then this is how the roots look like. And how we do this is actually, it's not. There are not. This is first of all, this is not. Oh, this is not. What did I do now? Okay. Okay. Thanks. Hello. You have magic fingers. Yeah, yeah. So how do we do this? This is actually not. First of all, this is not expensive. We are, for example, the farmers are increasing the vegetation cover, meaning that there's always growing something on the soil, and we are lengthening the period of growth, and we are also looking for crops and strains to increase yields, and then we manage actually the soil structure in a way that we let the soil produce their own, so to say, manage it by themselves. Then we have diversified crop rotation, so we are not having the same plant there every year. We diversify. And then we increase the soil organic matter, meaning that we use manure or recycled fertilizers or soil amendments, which are then also recycled, meaning that we use less fossil-based fertilizers. And then also we do not touch the earth so much, what we call the reduced tillage, I think that is in English. So we do less with the soil. Then we let the soil work, because the soil knows what to do. So we do not disturb the fungi and the actual little microbes that work there. And what we do is we invite farmers to join us. We started in 2017, and we invite farmers to join us, and they don't need to do anything radical. They can, for example, start by taking one little part of their field, and then they can, let's say, innovate. They can start applying this Carbon Action system, the ways of what I just described, the way of farming in a different manner. and then they have a control plot, and then we can just take samples and see how the crops are developing and how the soil is actually how the soil improves. And this is a platform which is a fundamental thing that the farmers also they talk to each other. They share knowledge. We also have researchers. We have some stations on the fields. We can all the time measure how much carbon is actually being released or how much carbon is going into the field. And the most important thing here is that we have cooperation also with the companies, the companies which produce food. That, for example, let's take a very easy example. For example, a carbon action farmer is growing barley, and then there's a company that buys the barley and makes beer. So this is a very simple example that the company is then making a commitment that they are committed in buying barley from these farmers. And the researchers are there all the time verifying what is happening. So this is not based on any feeling or anything, but we have a scientific proof how this is working. And we can actually see that this doesn't, as I said, this is not expensive. This doesn't require any equipment, anything special, no extra fertilizers or anything, no magic ingredients, so to say, but this is just the way the soil is being worked, and we have seen that actually the yields have grown. So it's not that the farmers are losing money here, but they are actually gaining more because they have better yields and longer growth periods. And this is how it looks like now. We have, at the time, in these 5 years, we have gained 100 farms are committed to research, training, and co-development. And then we have a Carbon Action Club. You can join the club and hear about these things, and you don't have to try anything, but you can just join the club and, so to say, be a member, so to say, and get all this knowledge if you join. And we recently also launched an e-college. It's a web-based learning mode that you can also get your carbon action, so to say, education by doing this, by completing this e-course. And the interest is growing. We have quite much interest from other countries that they would like to join this as well. And this is really, it's as you see, it's also it works here in the north as well. So this is not only for the southern part of Finland where the let's say the soil is more fertile, but also up here in the north. So that was about the farming side of Baltic Sea Action Group. And now we move to this. Cooperation to project the underwater diversity. And luckily the next speaker will be telling more about this basis for this action. But in simple words, there is a big inventory program called Velmu, which has been charting the waters, the Finnish waters, for quite a long while already, for a number of years, and we have then identified the valuable marine environments, which are the most valuable and which would need to be protected. And our idea is to inspire the private land owners or water owners to establish private protection areas. And this would have quite an impact. I think I will let the next speaker talk about. I think you will be covering these matters much more. But what our role here is that we have created, so to say, a protection path. So if somebody would like to protect their own coastline, they will have, so to say, a handbook what to do, how to proceed in these actions. And this is actually not a simple thing, since we know that there might be a quite valuable a coastal area where there are multiple private owners. And first of all, to get our hands to know who is the owner of this particular coastal area, and then how to get them, let's say, how to get them excited about this whole project is then the issue. But then if somebody, for example, a private person owns let's say, a tiny island or something, and they want to protect the surroundings, then we are helping them in all this legal and all these contractual and then practical matters, how to do this. And the first big area which has been now, which is being diverted into a private protection area is is in the very southern part of Finland. It's called Gullkruuna, and there the private protection area is going to be 4,800 hectares. So it's quite a big area, and that is what the Baltic Sea looks like at its best. So you have these bladder wracks, and you have all this, let's say, the key species are there, very healthy and very vital, and very, let's say, supporting the whole biodiversity of the area. And this is going to be quite something. We are very happy about this. And as you know, there is quite a ambitious program of protecting our marine environment, and we are very far from the percentages what we should be reaching, and we are trying to do our best to help the private parties to protect the sea areas. But we will hear more about this Velmu stuff and all this later on. But I will move now to this third item, which is actually my forte, is the shipping part. And there we have been focusing on nutrient discharges from cargo ships. And at any given day, there are about 2,000 cargo ships in the Baltic Sea sailing back and forth. And actually, what many people think is that the passenger ships are the biggest, and that there would be more of those, but actually there are not that many of those. But we have more cargo ships in the Baltic Sea than passenger ships, 2,000 every day. And if we figure out how many seafarers there are on board these 2,000 ships, it's about 25,000 seafarers. And why this is important? It is important for the reason that for the passenger ships, for example, they cannot discharge their toilet waters into the sea any longer. They used to, but not anymore. But for cargo ships, it is still legal. They can do it 20 kilometers, 12 miles from the coastline. They can put everything to the sea, which is an awful thing, and it's beyond anybody's comprehension that they are still allowed to do it. But anyway, they are. And if you think that there are any given day 25,000 seafarers and all their toilet waters and their grey waters coming from kitchen, from showers, from dishwashers, and this and that, they can also be discharged into the sea. Also, ground food waste is legal to discharge into the sea. So if you think of 25,000 people, this is quite a let's say a small city. And if you think that a small city, like I would say, I don't know how many people live, for example, in Raahe or somewhere. I think that might be the same size about, that they would put everything to the sea, unprocessed, so just like it is. So this beats many people's understanding, and so with us as well. And we are now trying to find out ways to do things. We know one day this will be illegal, the regulation will change, but in the meantime we have to do something to make a difference to these discharges. This is a very simple slide about what actually is generated on cargo ships. And the bad thing is that all these items marked or written in red are the ones which can be put legally into the sea. So the good news obviously is that oily waste is no longer, you cannot discharge your bilge waters or oily waters into the sea. But then again, you can pump, for example, scrubber waters, and scrubbers are the equipment which removes sulfur from the fuel. So ships are no longer allowed to burn high sulfur fuel, but they take the sulfur out of the fuel, and they do not emit into the air, but instead they discharge it into the sea, which of course doesn't make any sense, but this is now what happens, and it is legal. Then we also have, as I said, we have this garbage issues. No ship is allowed to discharge any plastic or cardboard or glass or timber, all electronics obviously, but they can still discharge food waste into the sea. The same for the ships, cargo ships. When they discharge a cargo, be it in tankers or dry cargo ships, then they need to wash the ship's tanks or holes in the meantime or between the cargoes, and all this is legal to discharge into the sea. Obviously, if there is, for example, hazardous chemicals, that is not allowed, but for example, a very common commodity here in the Baltic Seas is what ships carry is, for example, caustic soda. And if you clean those tanks, then you can put that washing water into the sea. Or if you carry, let's say, grain or fertilizers or anything like that, then you can discharge those washing waters also into the sea. And cargo residues, as I said, is something what we are worried about. They contain nutrients, and they might contain some other stuff as well, which we do not actually know. And sewage, meaning the toilet waters and grey waters, as I said, from cargo ships go most into the sea. We did a few years ago. We did a questionnaire, or we asked cargo ships to fill in a questionnaire. Cargo ships that visited Finnish ports, and we heard from those replies the clear message: 2/3 of the cargo ships, they discharge everything to the sea, from the toilets or grey waters. And we also get support for this fact from the Finnish ports, because we have been asking from ports how much did they actually receive from cargo ships. And for example, in Kotka, which is one of the biggest cargo ports in Finland, they get 2,500 cargo ships per year, roughly, visiting Kotka port. And 2020, only 3 ships left their sewage to the port. So that tells that the big bin is, so to say, there, and it's called the Baltic Sea. So what we have tried to do about this, of course, we have now raised the topic. We have been talking to ship owners, we have been talking to ports, we have been talking to ship agents, and everybody who is involved in this chain. And then we managed to launch an initiative which we call the Ship Waste Action. And this is a simple thing. It's a simple graph showing that the ship comes to the port and discharges the sewage and grey waters and food waste to the port. Then it's transferred or transported further to, for example, a biogas plant, and all this sewage sludge is actually used to produce biogas or soil amendments, or used, for example, for district heating. And we started this action in the port of Kotka. And even though the chain looks very easy, it actually requires quite a number of players to play together to make this happen. So we have to talk to the shipping companies, we have to talk to the ships, we have to talk to the port agents, port operators, and transport companies and this and that to make the chain very smooth and flexible. And only then we can get this working. And the funny thing itself is that when the cargo ship calls at the port in Finland, they pay what we call the waste fee, and they pay it even if they leave anything to the port or not. And that is meant to, let's say, to encourage the ships to discharge everything at port, because anyway you have to pay the waste fee. And if you pay the waste fee, you can leave all the sewage and all the garbage and all the oily waste and everything to the port. And we have been trying now to raise this awareness about this issue, that even though you guys, anyway you pay, so why don't you leave everything to the port? And as I said, we have a list of operators who we need for this action. And as the ports are very different, also the chain is very different in every port. So we have, our role has been to find the right parties and build these chains in different ports. And we have now been able to launch this first in Kotka. Now, secondly, we found this or launched this in Rauma. And the good thing is that we now finally, actually this week, the UPM, which is one of the biggest forest companies, paper companies in Finland, they announced that their paper and their raw materials do not move in any ship that discharges wastewaters into the sea. So we got the commitment from them that they are actually putting the pressure now on shipping companies and on the ports to make this happen. And especially these days when we all know that we are so dependent on the fossil stuff. We are, for example, the fertilizers. We are very dependent on Russia, and now that all the imports have been stopped from Russia, we need to find the nutrients somewhere, and the sewage is one of the easy solutions, so to say. We have to collect all the bits and pieces and all those small streams to get the sewage, for example, into circular use, and this is one way of doing it. And this has been quite a successful start. It takes a lot of work to build these chains, but it has been our so to say, our mission to build these chains and get these wastewaters into some sensible use. And of course, the main idea is to get them out of the sea, and we don't burn the water, the Baltic Sea anymore with the nutrients and chemicals and microplastics and what have you, what is contained in these waters. So we get them ashore, and then the second best thing is that then we get them also for some practical use, meaning biogas or soil amendments or circular district heating. So this was in short what Baltic Sea Action Group is doing. This is all voluntary actions. We do not force anybody. We want to work with everybody in good cooperation. As I showed these examples, we need quite a big number of parties to join us for these actions. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Elisa. We have time for one or two questions. Question or? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Petri Luukkonen. How would you define what is the advantage of your activity compared to the authorities? Why are you needed?
It's a good question. If I answer regarding the shipping aspect, is that we know that, for example, Finland has been pushing these issues in the regulatory side. We have the International Maritime Organization, and we have HELCOM, the Helsinki Commission, where these things are try to tighten the regulations in there, and it takes years to make anything happen. But in the meantime, we can do this, push these voluntary actions, and what we have also noticed is that, for example, some ports, they realize that all this what we have been doing is increasing their costs, and they have to change their ways of doing. But then the smart ones, they realize that actually in a few years' time anyway they have to do this. So if they start now, then they are ready when the regulation changes. So we are working basically with the authorities in the same direction with the authorities, but we are working on different, let's say, rails, or I don't know how would you say, but we are working towards the same goal, but in a different mode.
I don't need that right there. Sorry, Kari. Can I ask you a very sort of practical question? My understanding is this part of the Gulf of Bothnia is freshwater, as opposed to saltwater. Is that right? Almost salty. Almost fresh. And does that mean that there are very few currents and it's not tidal? So that means if people are discharging in this part of the world, it has nowhere to go apart from lying at the top or just dropping. That's frightening.
Yeah, good question, and I think we have a better specialist here, but to my understanding, the Baltic Sea is basically a basin, so everything what enters the Baltic Sea doesn't actually go away. So it stays there, and especially these discharges from cargo ships are basically they might be small and they might be not that let's say heavy, containing that many nutrients, but then again, if the sea is already if there's quite much of eutrophication already, and then you put some additional to it, it might cause it might accelerate the process, and that's what we are afraid of.
Thank you again, Elisa. I think we move to the next speaker.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker is Essi Keskinen, and her talk is about future of Bothnian Bay. Marine nature is laid on solid data. Essi is marine biologist at Metsähallitus Parks and Wildlife Finland. Metsähallitus is a state-owned enterprise that sustainably uses, manages and protects state-owned land and water areas. Essi has studied marine biology in an exchange program in Manchester and has completed her practical training at a marine research institute in the Maldives. So welcome, Essi.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. I was wondering if I can put the microphone here. Yes. And you can hear me now. I built this whole presentation from a different point of view this time, and that's why I have I don't need the notes because I have them here. Thank you. Okay, so the point of this presentation is that we need to collect a lot of basic data and build more analysis and questions on that, and collect more data when we think of more questions. And everyone is doing their bit in this joint effort. And finally, we have built a network of organizations and people who can make possible that we can manage the Bothnian Bay and even predict its future based on solid data. This presentation is a joint effort of so many different organizations and so many different people, just like the data and the analyses that are behind the future of the Bothnian Bay. There have been many funders and many projects, and also many organizations and partners from Sweden, and I hope to include everyone, and thank you everyone for this joint effort also in this presentation. Even the slides themselves are from all these different organizations. and so this presentation represents the joint effort that we are putting into managing the Botnian Bay. You can have this presentation and read it through better time later. There's a lot of slides. I'm not going into detail into anything, and now I'll just present to you what kinds of data we've collected jointly and to what purposes they have been used. So don't try to read everything. Listen to me instead. And I even haven't tried to make the slides to look like they belong to one presentation, but I have used the original ones that were given to me by these various colleagues. So here we go. This is the content of my presentation. Obviously, we went through point one now. Then I say a few words about Velmu, the Finnish National Underwater Marine Nature Inventory Program, since it has been ongoing since 2004. Then we go to zonation and marine nature values. Zonation is a tool that can be used for assessing which marine nature areas are valuable and which are not that valuable. And then we go to EMMA, which are ecologically or biologically significant underwater marine areas. Then we talk a little about blue growth, like offshore wind parks, marine aggregates, and fish farming. Then we go through marine spatial planning and 3030, which is the plan to protect at least 30% of the marine and land areas by the year 2030. And MPAs, which are marine protected areas management plans as well. Then we touch the future climate scenarios for Gulf of Bothnia, and also talk about a little bit of species distribution models for future, and ecosystem services for future, and connectivity of the marine protected areas. And then we finally go to restoration of marine habitats and monitoring. I will do this all in 30 minutes. So, Velmu is the Finnish National Underwater Nature Inventory Program. We've collected about 170,000 sample points during the last 15 years. The program is still ongoing. Here you can see, if you can see the little dots coming here, and the year is changing. This is how we've collected the data. It's basically plant and algae species, where they are growing, and also about attached animals that are growing there. These are various methods by which the data has been collected: drop video, diving, snorkeling, benthos and fish larvae sampling, and also echo-sounding, and so on. Velmu inventories have brought a lot of new information about the rare and threatened species and habitats. We have a lot of them around Hailuoto Island, very many species. We have also collected a lot of information about non-indigenous and alien species when doing the Velmu inventories. The Velmu inventories have also increased the knowledge about marine underwater nature's complexity and variability along the whole long Finnish coast. For example, even though the number of benthic invertebrates on the left side map decreases towards the north and the Botnian Bay, the number of vascular plants and also the number of threatened species increases towards the north, which are the right-hand pictures. There are a lot more threatened species in the Botnian Bay than anywhere else in the Finnish coast when we are talking about marine species now. Many of these species used to be spread around the whole coast, but they've disappeared from the south and the west. Velmu data has also been used in, for example, assessing the red list species and habitats in Finland, and also in Natura 2000 marine protection area network expansion. And with Velmu data, the first underwater nature value map was produced in Finland, and that was done by zonation. which is an ecologically based decision support tool for land and marine spatial planning. For zonation, we had to define certain nature values. That was done by expert knowledge using a Swedish mosaic tool, where weights are given to species, habitats, and pressures. Then we defined species extent and intensity of human pressures, also to be used in the zonation tool. Zonation uses a lot of different data layers, for example, 112 species and habitat models collected in WELMU data, and 22 different human pressure layers for the most valuable underwater marine nature. And this is an example from the Botnian Bay. We had this SeaBot project where we did these maps. All of this data was fed into the zonation tool to create biodiversity maps of Botnian Bay to see where the most valuable underwater nature can be found. For the Northern Botnian Bay underwater nature value biodiversity map, the zonation used, for example, biological data, 22,000 sites from both countries altogether, Finland and Sweden. Then we used all kinds of environmental data, and we used geological data, and earth observations like shallow areas, and Secchi depth, which is the water clarity, etc. We also used ecological models for threatened and other species. This is an ecological distribution model for probability of finding a threatened species, Alisma wallenbergi. You can find it a lot here in Hailuoto Island. Human pressure layers like dredging was also used. And the final result from the zonation analysis are the areas of most nature values in the sea area. In the Botnian Bay, they happen to be shallow bays and river estuaries where a lot of the threatened species can be found, but also, unfortunately, a lot of the human pressures. The darker the area, the more valuable these bays are. And here are some more valuable underwater nature areas, very remote islands in the middle of the sea and also river estuaries. What was found out is that the nature values are highly concentrated. Here you can see that 10% of the overall study area, which is the Northern Botnian Bay, includes about 96% of the nature values, and also, unfortunately, 57% of the human pressures. This leads us to marine spatial planning and how to take the marine biodiversity hotspots into account in spatial planning. We start by going through the Convention on Biological Diversity, which has defined ecologically or biologically significant marine areas, or EBSAs, around the world. And you can see them here, bordered with white. The criteria for EBSA sites tells us about the uniqueness or rarity of the area and its special nature values. If we look at the regional scale, we can see that there are 4 EBSAs around the Finnish coast, 2 of them in the Gulf of Bothnia. We also wanted to zoom in the scale of these special marine areas in the Finnish water to support maritime spatial planning, and so we created EMMAs, which are basically Finnish national EBSAs. They are based on all the data that have been already shown to you, also expert knowledge and also literature. The special thing about the EMMA areas is that they don't consider the existing protected areas or administrative borders, but they are completely based on nature values. We started with this kind of draft map and had many workshops with various experts around the whole coast. And the end production was this, and the EMMA areas are also shown on the Finnish National Marine Spatial Planning Map. I will show that to you a bit later. Here are some examples of EMMA areas and some of the most important reasons why they exist in the Botnian Bay. For example, fish populations, naturalness, threatened species, or diverse vascular plant communities. Altogether, we have 24 EMMA areas in the Botnian Bay, which is quite a lot. EMMAs can be found in the first Finnish marine spatial planning map that was published last December. They can be found in the green color there. And now, since I showed you the planning map, now we get to the blue growth. What blue growth materials were used in the Finnish marine spatial planning map? Obviously, a lot of Velmu materials, but also, for example, suitable offshore wind energy areas were used, and possible marine aggregates areas where we can use the sand or gravel that lies at the bottom of the sea. Then national plan for fish farming was used in this national spatial map. And this leads us to the first national maritime spatial plan for 2030. Or actually, I think it's 2027 now or something like that. It's in 6-year rotation. This was released in the end of last year. It was a huge national effort to produce this strategic spatial plan for the next 6 or so years. And it took a lot of experts and workshops and huge amount of data, like we've seen already, and a lot of hard work to come up with this spatial plan. It is not legally binding, but more a guiding plan at a strategic level, and it's based on the Marine Spatial Planning Directive from year 2014. And I'll show you some of the presentation material from the MSP, and if you're interested, you can get them later and look at them with better time. Now I just want to show you that a whole lot of data went into this spatial plan. And also because I got these beautiful slides, I want to show them to you, even though you're not going into them. You can find the plan map behind the link here in the internet. In the map, you can click different layers on and see how they affect the big picture. The Finnish MSP, Marine Spatial Plan, is also shared with neighbor and other countries in open web pages, as the INSPIRE directive from year 2007 expects us to do. This directive basically says that all spatial data that has been collected or produced by taxpayers' money will have to be open to public and also compatible across the EU. I'll only leave these 3 next slides here if you really want to go back to them later, but I won't go into them now. They summarize all the different data layers that went into the MSP that we already went through. But since they are beautiful, beautiful slides, I leave them there. Then we get to another topic, 30 by 30. This means that the EU biodiversity strategy for year 2030 tells us to protect at least 30% of the land and sea areas, and 1/3 of that should be protected strictly. Whatever that means, it's still under debate. And talking about marine protected areas, we have also these local marine protected areas like national parks and conservation areas. And most of them have management plans for marine national parks and also certain Natura 2000 areas and other marine conservation areas. And this is where we need all the background data as well. So the management plans are redone every 10 to 15 years, depending how important the area is and how many visitors there are, with the current data and knowledge. So we always try to come up with the latest data. But what about the future? I'll show you some future predictions and scenarios that were done in eConnect project that just ended this year. According to eConnect project and most of the current climate change models, water temperature in the next 100 years will most definitely rise in the Botnian Bay. And the northern you go, the more northern areas you go, the more it will increase. So in the map, the more red it is, the more temperature will rise in the next 100 years. This also means that the ice will get thinner, and also the area of the ice coverage will get smaller. And the salinity, it might decline slightly, but not as much as was anticipated earlier. There are still large uncertainties with the salinity models for future, but it looks like it might decline slightly. BSAP is the Baltic Sea Action Plan by HELCOM, which is Helsinki Commission, or the Joint Baltic Sea Protection Organization. In the BSAP, there are strict amounts of nutrients that we need to reduce in the future. And if we can follow the plan, it will lower the eutrophication level of the Baltic Sea. Here, the darker the sea area, the less nutrients there will be in the future if we follow the Baltic Sea Action Plan. And all of these future scenarios that I show you are expecting that we follow this BSAP and also manage to lower the amount of nutrients. If we then combine all these future predictions with the species distribution models that we now have, based on Velmu data, we have the future winners and losers in species. If the climate change proceeds as predicted, and if the Baltic Sea Action Plan reduces the nutrients. All fugu species, we have 2 species of fugus, they might benefit from thinner ice because the ice doesn't scrape this algae away every year. It's an annual, not an annual algae, but perennial. And it also doesn't get as much competition from filamentous algae, which is an annual algae. The more blue in the map, the better the species is doing in the future. And yeah, you might see a little bit darker there. Left map is from history to present day, and the right map is the future from 100 years from now. Aquatic mosses may benefit from warmer water and also clearer water, and by lower salinity if that happens. Water mosses are freshwater species, but they might, they grow in the Botnian Bay, but they might benefit. Also, pondweeds may benefit from warming waters. And we also may have some possible losers of species in the future. Blue mussels might withdraw south with warming waters. That might turn less saline. And we already heard that there are some key species, and blue mussel is one of them. So it's not a good thing that it might disappear from a lot of the sea areas. The shrimp-like crustacean, this Monoporeia affinis, might suffer from the warming bottom waters. But if you want to see the summary of predicted 100 years changes and the increase or decrease of species in the Gulf of Bothnia, here it is. Temperature and light penetration will increase. The amount of ice and phosphate will definitely decrease, but whether the salinity will decrease a little or not that much is still up for guesses. Some of the species won't be affected at all, probably. Then a word about ecosystem services. Ecosystem services, or ES, are natural conditions and processes through which ecosystems and the species within them enable and sustain the human life. If we want, we can calculate euro values for these. Economists like that. Ecosystem services are, for example, fish that we can get from the sea, water filtration through blue mussels, for example, recreational opportunities like boating and swimming in the sea. Then you don't have to read this slide, but just look at the map. ESA stands for Ecosystem Services Index. If it's blue, it's getting better in the future, and if it's red, it's getting worse in the future. Deeper areas are losing ecosystem services, while shallow areas are gaining more area for them. The reason why we don't see this much change in the Swedish coast is due to topography. The coastline in Sweden is really steep, leaving a relatively narrow area for the organisms to inhabit. Most probably the factors affecting the future species distribution and ecosystem services are largely the same on both sides of the Gulf. But just due to these depth changes, the picture looks different on both sides. Then let's talk about connectivity for a length of one slide. This means that where the species can and cannot spread. Some species, like fish, can spread a long way from where they were born. But for example, vascular plants that are rooted in the soil might not be able to spread over large, deep water areas. The more dark yellow or orange there is in the map, it means that there's more connectivity. And it means that if we have a network of marine protected areas around the coast of Finland, the connectivity is quite good, and the species can spread from one MPA to the next, but not necessarily on the Swedish coast because of the topography again. We have shallow coast, species can quite easily spread, but when the deeper coast, it's more difficult for them. So when the climate change proceeds and species move either north or south, depending on their preferences, we have to know where they can and cannot go in the future, and whether that new area would be suitable for them, and also if it's protected or not, so the species would have a safe future in that new area. And if the connectivity fails us and we don't have enough suitable habitats close by, we might consider restoration of habitats. And here are examples from one Kvarkenflara project that were examining what kinds of lagoons or floods they could restore. Many of these places have been ruined by humans, but they can be restored in future. But we just have to know what they were like before and what we are expecting to restore them to. And based on relevant historic and current data, we can make a list of prioritization of habitats and species. And then in Finland, we just started a very large new marine life project called Biodiversity Life IP project. One aim of this 8-year project is to come up with a national restoration plan for underwater habitats and species. The same Biodiversity Life project will also develop a national monitoring program for shallow underwater marine nature. This means that the deeper soft bottoms are already monitored somehow through benthic sampling, but especially the shallow photic area where the underwater plants can photosynthesize has never been monitored before. There's plenty of time to develop the monitoring program, and finding indicator species has already started last year in Velmo program. And the program should be ready for implementation by 2029. Remote sensing could also be used as one method of monitoring, since it is often more cost-effective than sampling or diving or many other methods. To sum it up, future of Bothnian Bay marine nature is really laid on solid data, and it needs a lot of cooperation to manage a whole sea area. And if you want the same in a picture, here it is. Velmo data is at the bottom. We have data of where all the species are, where different habitats are, and then everything else can grow from that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see questions or comments. We have a few minutes. No questions or comments? You want to have lunch now? Maybe one question. Now you are gaining a lot of data. How do you see it in the future? I mean, how easy will it be to use the data to turn things around?
Yes, it's a good question. We have a national database where all of this data is stored as individual sampling points, but that doesn't really help if you want to take get a larger picture of the area. So that's why we have all these different projects, for example, that are analyzing the data and making that into, for example, these nature value maps, which are easier to use. But all of this data is open also for public at www.life.fi. No? Almost. I'll tell you when I know it. But all of this data can be seen on the internet and also Velmu webpage. There's a map where you can see where everything has been happening. But yeah, analyzing is the key to use this data, I think.
Okay, thank you again, Nessie. And if we do not have further questions, then we take lunch and we will be back sharp and start sharp 12:20 because we have to be very precise in the afternoon due to the ferry and so. So lunch until 12:20. Okay, we are back again. And the next speaker is Kimmo Paajanen. And he will speak about the controlled drone test areas in Finland. Kimmo is a project manager at FUAVE, Finnish UAV ecosystem at Oulu University of Applied Sciences, ecosystem leader at Arctic Drone Labs, and drone competence team leader at Oulu University of Applied Sciences. Welcome, Kimmo.
Yes, thank you. I'll put this. Okay, well. Yeah, I'm telling something about Finnish drone expertise. Just a second. Yes. Okay. Yes, my name is Kimmo Paajanen, like I was introduced just, and I've been working for the university since 2005, and since 2016 I've been working remotely. First in Jyväskylä, southern Finland, and then from 2017 I was starting working from Helsinki. So, but Oulu is still my home, kind of a mental home, and I speak Oulu dialect in Finnish language, which sounds very, very strange for the Helsinki people in the capital. So people immediately know where I'm from, but hopefully it doesn't cause any troubles to my English language. But yes, we have a drone competence team in our university, and a couple of our team members are here as well. There is Mr. Henri Hinkula over there, which is our chief pilot. I don't know anything about flying a drone. Well, I do. I have done some A1, A3 drone certificates, so I can fly. But we have more experienced pilots in our team, and one of the most experienced is Henri. And then there is Mikko. Mikko is not here now, but he's the other guy here who is even more experienced. But unfortunately, Mikko was going to the university, this other university department, and he's now working for these agricultural people over here. But I don't mind; we cooperate still. So we don't have internal borders in our university, in the different faculties or different schools. So I'm coming from the school of ICT, so information technology, where this drone competence teams is belonging. Speaking about this FUAVE project, this Finnish UAV ecosystem, so UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles, or nowadays Commission is talking about unmanned aerial systems. So that the drones is the kind of a common name for that, but the FOAVE is a project that is funded by the Academy of Finland, 1.7 million euro budget. It's covering 70% of the costs, and then the total budget will be 2.4 million, where our share in the university is 419,000. 2.5-year project time span. We started on month 7, 2020, and then this project will last until the end of the year. And we have a consortium consisting of 5 partners. FGI, Finnish Geographical Institute is a leader, and then there's our neighboring university, University of Oulu, VTT, Technical Research Center of Finland, our university, Oulu University of Applied Sciences, and then the Southeastern University of Applied Sciences from southeast of Finland. So it's a nationwide project. We also have kind of a network, because we are an ecosystem, UAV ecosystem. We have network of companies involved. I can show some logos later on, but our fundamental objective in this project is to establish this kind of a partnership ecosystem to support development of Finnish top research and business related to the future unmanned aviation and its applications. So basically the ecosystem is the key for this project, but what we actually do is that we are establishing and facilitating controlled test areas for different type of trials. I have some maps about what kind of test areas we have and what kind of testing can be done in those areas. So at the moment we have established several urban and rural test areas all across Finland, and our aim is to provide a single entry and one-stop service point for UAS research and development activities here, serving not just the Finnish customers but also be international. Now I was promising to show you some logos here. Here you can see a couple of interesting ones. Arctic Drone Labs is over there. That's our research team, and also the Digital Innovation Hub in Europe. We got the Commission accredited status of being a Digital Innovation Hub back in the 2018 or 19. I don't remember exactly, but that was the moment that we actually got a quite good reputation in terms of the European cooperation between the different stakeholders. The European Digital Innovation Hubs, I think there were about 400-ish digital innovation hubs established throughout Europe, in all the European Union countries. And I think the number of Finnish digital innovation hubs was about less than 10, so we were one of them, and specifically focused on the drone technology. We also got another status, advanced technology for industries. That's another accreditation by the European Commission, where they gave us kind of a status for providing tools and services and all of this type of facilitated areas to the industry representatives. Speaking of what's the benefit, it's all obviously connections and network and international cooperation between the different institutes and so on. So we've been cooperating with other digital innovation hubs and made some kind of a cooperation agreements between those to incubate and further do some joint research work together. There are approximately 50 plus businesses and society and academic members in here. The number is growing all the time. I think the current state is something like 65 or something. But there are lots of companies coming. Now, speaking about that controlled test areas, we have a certain process how to make it happen. When you establish a UAV controlled test area, you need to follow the law. That's the number one. Following the law means that you need to have like a very precise preparation period for those things, and then you submit your proposal to the local funder. In Finland, in this case, is the organization, the authority is called Traficom, which is a Finnish authorization authorized by the European Aviation and Space Agency, EASA, which is kind of an umbrella organization for all of these legislative issues here in the Europe. So Traficom has been reading our documents, and then they have been either accepting and letting us to open those controlled test areas, or they've been rejected. Then the final stage is to open. So this is kind of a process description of what kind of how these controlled test areas are opened and taken into use. So here is the list of the different UAV test areas at the moment. So we have a couple of test areas in southeastern part of Finland, Helsinki East 2, then Helsinki West, Vihti test fields, Helsinki, Jätkäsaari, Oulu West revised. So actually this Oulu West test area is covering Hailuoto as well. So and this area is already operational since the beginning of May, I think that was the day. And then there are a couple of decision makings to do, and then there is one very interesting area in preparation, which I saw a little bit later on what we can do with it. So, and then also there is another minor area in preparation as well in Oulu eastern side. But what these test areas are all about. So here you can see the coastline of Oulu region, and Hailuoto is that block over there. So Hailuoto is this island here. And as you can see, these black rounded areas are the control test areas that we have been establishing here in Oulu region. So the area size is like 52.5 kilometers times 45.5 kilometers. So you can imagine how big this area is at the moment. It's covering 3 municipalities in Oulu region. Oulu, and then municipality, the shortest name in the Europe called E, and then Hailuoto. I've heard that in where was that in Wales? There is a biggest area, whatever name of the municipality. That was in Wales, but here is the shortest in the Europe. It's called E. But those 2 areas on top of that map are in the municipality of E area. So what this area is actually covering is there are a couple of airports. The second largest airport, the second busiest airport in Finland is the Oulu airport. So the Oulu airport is in the vicinity of this area. So I don't know if you can see from this crappy map from the bottom, but here in the bottom you can see this is the Oulu airport where all of you guys were coming on the way to Hailuoto if you were coming from abroad. So the second busiest airport in Finland, I don't know, 1.5 million travelers per year or something like that, but it's really the in a close vicinity of drone test area that we have. Which means that we have to be very careful because we are using the same airspace. If you think about, usually the airplanes, they will run over 500 feet, 500 or above. Even the small aircrafts, they don't usually go under that unless they are landing or taking off from the airport. But usually the drones are using the areas from 0 to up to 500 feet, or even more. For example, in this area we have a special permission for 800 feet. So these areas A and B over here, which are in the city center, the maximum altitude is 800 feet. And then even here in Hailuoto, we can even go up to the 1,700 feet. So this is 1,700 feet, which is about 518 meters altitude that we can use in these drones. So you can imagine that we are quite close in this case already with normal airplanes. So what we really have to do is we have to follow these rules and regulations, and this is going close to the aviation, honestly. This is very close to the aviation that we are doing here in terms of the regulation, because, for example, if these guys want to start flying here, they have to activate the area and make the certain thing called NOTAM, which is Notice for Airmen. This notification has to be done at least the previous day by midday. So whenever, if today there was a flight here in this test area, we need to prepare that so that yesterday by 12 o'clock we've been notifying everybody that, okay, there's drone activities going on. So this is just an example how these kind of controlled test areas are secured in the air safety. Obviously, if you think about these things, there are two different things. One thing is the safety in the air, and the other thing is the safety on what's under it, what's safe, how does it be safe on the land. We don't want to drop anything, or we don't want to hit anything. So what we are actually doing here, we have a fleet of drones. You can see a couple of examples here, a couple of drones we have here. We have one over there and two over there, but we totally have 24 drones in our fleet. And if you want to know how much it costs something like 350,000 euros to put things in the air, so we don't want to break them either. So what we are doing, we also have in the university, we have a indoor testing area. In the university, in collaboration with the University of Oulu, they have a specific equipment there for the indoor testing. And then because we are doing these kind of tests and flights in the lower altitude, we are also controlling that area by using the different kind of mechanisms, including use-based testing or just the surveillance. And then this has been now running about a year, and you have to renew this kind of a temporary danger area every year. So it's annual. The aviation year changes in somewhere in end of April, and every year from the 21st of April or 22nd of April, you establish a new temporary danger area for the next following season. And then when you do this testing, it's there on all the aviation maps for all the people that are using the airspace, whether they are the big aircrafts or small aircrafts or drones, or well, hopefully tomorrow or in future there will be birds detected also with all different type of sensors that we know that where they are, because they are also one basically it's a risk for the aviation, but we also have to respect because this bird is, for example, this area is the one of the most populated area in terms of the birds. So we have to respect the nature. So that's why this is very important to take into consideration as well. There's another area which I mentioned earlier. This is a smaller testing area in the middle of the nowhere, where you can try these trials without any fear of interference, because that area is technically uninhabited, and you can also go quite up from the surface up to the 2,200 feet. So it's significantly high block here in the air where you can use this use drones in safe and secured area. As a curiosity, there is motorsports racing field here in the corner, so maybe in sometimes in future we will have also the drone flight tournaments, because the drone is sometimes used in very serious businesses, but sometimes it's used also in very entertainment way. So drone tournaments or drone racing is one of the actually quite interesting topics in the terms of the in terms of the sports. You put the helmet on and then you start flying, and you imagine that you are in there on the cockpit. So it's very interesting. Yeah, okay, speaking of the coastal areas, so this is one testing area, a smaller area in the nearby the private airport called Redstone Aero. That is a small area, 10 kilometers wide, 3.3 kilometers. And a special use for this is the beyond visual line of sight type of flight. So visual line of sight flight is when you can see it, and when it's going beyond, then you need different rules and regulations for that, and that is also controlled, that you cannot do beyond visual line of sight type of flights everywhere. So this is one of the hot topics to test, and it's very crucial tryout for the if you want to do any kind of automation. If the drones are flying automatically or autonomously, they are always going beyond visual line of sight, and then yet again the EASA, this aviation authority is regulating it differently because it's more dangerous. Another one, shape of hexagon. What is this? 6. And this is one of the test areas as well in the southern part of Finland, nearby the seashore. What we have here also, this is in Helsinki West, a little bit west of Helsinki Sjökulla area. Well, you can't see it. I can clearly say that this picture is taken in the middle of the night, but it's UAS allowed, so that it's a different type of test area, because in principle, the normal test area, when you establish it, is called temporary danger area, Tempo D. That has a different rules on that. You need to activate within 24 hours, and then you can start operating in there. But then there is a different category called UAS allowed, which says that UAS operations are allowed, so you can use them freely. So they are permanently open. So basically, you don't have to report when you start using them. UAS allowed means that, okay, well, you can start using them as you go when it's operational and activated and up running. So one specialty in this area is it's a multicopter area, maximum of 50 kilogram maximum takeoff weight. So basically in that area we could use our heaviest drones in our fleet. I can show later on what it is, but it's an agricultural spraying drone. Weighs about, when it's fully loaded, weighs about 48 kilos approximately. So you can imagine how heavy stuff that is. It is really like, well, it's got 20 kilo of container of liquid, which it can raise. So basically the cherry canister.
We actually do have that drone, but I didn't bring it here. It's in the van, so
Yeah, okay, cool. So if you are interested to see how big the biggest devil is, then you can take a look at that 48 kilo drone. It's a huge one. And also you can use the fixed wing drones maximum of 25 kilos in here. So here these numbers are telling maybe something about this. And here are some pictures, but I don't want you to look at them because there are real examples on the right hand side. So this Vihti UAS test field is an interesting area because the landowner has given a permission for use this like spraying drone for testing purposes. Because imagine you put the drone up in the air and you have 20 kilo of fertilizer over there, you need a permission obviously for the spread it out. So this landowner over here, the field owner, is really like keen and interested to have these kind of modern technology tryouts for example, using the fertilizers, or you can also do some seeding with that device. So maybe we can take a look at a little bit more detailed on that next to that van when Henry is opening the door for us. Then this is interesting test area. You don't see anything obviously, but it's in Helsinki, in city center, not in precise city center because the precise city center is a no drone zone, and there are some areas also which are strategically important for the Finnish security and safety, including the governmental buildings in the city center and also the Prime Minister's house, central hospital and things like that. You are not allowed to use the drones in those areas. But but we have a permission to use the drones around it or around them. So that is also kind of things that we can do by the special permission that is given by the Traficom. In the urban areas like Helsinki, we can do the testing, including the goods delivery, maybe sea area inspections. There's a heavy traffic over there. We can do some traffic inspections, infrastructure maintenance, and obviously the permission has been applied for the beyond visual line of sight type of flights because it's a real use case in the urban area. And then another minor test area in Helsinki area, there's a couple of universities involved into those. There's like interesting wildlife in that bay over there. The picture is actually green and the sea is actually green. This area in Lapland East, Savukoski. That is one of the very, very big areas in Finland. It's the whole municipality of Savukoski, consisting of 5,240 square kilometers. So you can fly, all your batteries are dead when you fly from the start to the end. I can assure you that there's no drones that actually can fly from the start to the end, unless you have a combustion engine, which is not very, environmental friendly. If you have your 250cc two-stroke combustion engine there running, but that's the only way at the moment where you can reach these destinations. There is something to do still with the battery technology, especially in the harsh conditions. If you can go to the municipality of Savukoski in winter, there can be minus 40 degrees Celsius, so you can imagine how long the batteries will stay. So that is definitely an interesting testing area for different kind of harsh environment testing. And there is no danger for dropping the drone into somebody's head, because in that 100-kilometer long area, there's 1,000 people living only, and 10,000 reindeer though, but that's the ratio between the reindeer and the people in that area. But this area is also quite interesting because it's next to the Russian border. The Russian border is right next. Maybe you can see a little bit of red over there on the right-hand side. It's the no drone zone or no any kind of activity zone, because the drones are not allowed to fly in the nearby the Russian border. There's a clear zone there where you shouldn't go, restricted area. And I think the Finnish Air Force is practicing in the same area with the new Hornets that they just bought. So that is the same area which the Hornets are using daily basis, their practices, so we don't want to be on our way. So that's yet another example why we need these kind of control test areas that are done in collaboration with the different stakeholders. That's very reasonable. And here I can show the negotiations that we've been doing with the different type of stakeholders for these, which are really important partners to consult during the preparation periods. Because unless we do it in advance, we get nothing. So Fintraffic, Finnish Defence Forces being negotiated, Finnish Air Force, Finnish Border Guard, different type of air ambulance operators, the Finnish Air Rescue Society, Vessel Traffic Service, Finnish Aeronautical Association, AOPA Finland, which is Motor Pilots Association, Airbus Finland, which is kind of a Airbus activity. Airbus is, where does it come from? The drones. Remotely piloted aircrafts. Yeah, remotely piloted aircraft systems union, nearby airfields, Finnish Transportation Infrastructure Agency, and so on, so on. So this is like a long-term negotiation process to get them through all of these counterparts. But it's worth it, because when you can do it, when it's allowed, when you get the approval, and you are trained for that, and you do these training activities all the time. Our university is doing all the time the training people, getting qualified pilots. It's safe and it's not dangerous, and you don't have to worry about if you see a drone that it will drop, because also the society and the publicity is important as well. We are just waiting for the first really damaging crash that is happening somewhere in future. We don't want that to happen. So that's why we want to keep these things controlled. Some fleet and payload accessories, I don't want to go to the details, but you can explore these devices, and there are some payloads and sensors and all of kind of things that you have in there. So what we've been doing, for example, we have been scanning buildings. That is one of the example of our scanned buildings that we've been doing. So we did some scanning of Aalto silo. The Aalto is a famous architect in Finland, and the silo is one of the ugliest buildings in Oulu, which but it's a graded building. So the museum office is very keen to see what's going to happen to that. And there were no papers, there were no plans, there were no pictures, like detailed pictures about it. So what we did some, there was a company called Factum Foundation who bought that. They got it quite cheap, but there was a catch. They had to renovate it, but they can't renovate it in the way they want. They have to renovate it in a way which is allowed. Now, we came to help on that by doing some photogrammetry and LiDAR scanning of that building, and the purpose was restoration of the building for cultural preservation needs. So we used a couple of these drones. I think the 210 is it over there. That was one of those drones that was used in this photogrammetry. And the LiDAR scanning was doing with some fancy equipment. So first we needed to apply yet another permission for Traficom that cost €150. And we had to do the operation description, risk assessment, operation guidelines, checklists for pilots and observers. And we had to do the contingency procedures plan and emergency procedures plan and so on. And the application was sent in 14th of June last year, and the decision was made 3 days after. So our Traficom was really fast, but it also shows that our guys who were doing these applications were doing it precisely and very accurate manner. So they didn't have to wonder what it is. So they got the permission to use it. Then there was an operational phase. People were using these drones, and then we did some scanning. All you can see in this picture, you can see the flight path that this drone was doing and up in the air in the 3D space. And we did some data analysis, model accuracy, data formatting, storage, delivery of the results, and then the project reporting for the customer, and that was it. We have organized some events. This autumn we are going to have for our stakeholder event, a boot camp, where we do these applications and define these applications together, and that's going to happen in October 2022. And this is an annual event, and these are the pictures from the last year's event that we had held. Now, just quickly, because we are soon running out of time, I want to show you the interesting topics that are now hot topics in terms of research for research of drones. So remote sensing, photogrammetry, LiDAR, laser scanning, hyperspectral, GNSS analytics, connectivity, 5G and utilization of 5G and 6G networks, and then use drones as a flying infrastructure. It's part of the robotics, urban air mobility, application scenarios, ecosystem co-creation, drone logistics, Nordic challenges, one-stop shop service model, and so on. Regulation is one of the key things that we have to, and obviously everything is based on the safety and security. And test areas in drones are in the center of this, and what we want to really research, applied research, is beyond visual line of sight, autonomy, swarms, and different type of applications. And if you are interested, you can go to the FUAVE website, and I'm also available for further information. What I would like to show you briefly is the place where you can actually gather more information. Just a second. I need to stop this first and then. So go to the arcticdronelabs.com. That's the place to remember from this presentation. Here you can find our current projects, our future projects. If you are interested about the technical details of our devices, you can find here the different type of explanation of what kind of equipment and the payload we are using. And for example, this DJI Agras T20 is one of that spraying zone that will be used for spraying the maximum payload 20 kilos, maximum takeoff weight 42.6 kilos, maximum flight time only 10 minutes with maximum payload, so it doesn't fly long. But there are some other devices which fly a lot longer. If you're interested about this, please browse and take a look at the website. Then here you can see some of the explanation of our different projects. And maybe I will use a few minutes. How much time do I have left? Am I running out of time now? Yeah. That was a blunt answer. Yeah. I was about to promote what are going to happen in 2023. Are you interested to hear? European Digital Innovation Hub is a new time that we have in this next Horizon Europe period. So European Digital Innovation Hub is an instrument that is providing funds for the research and development type of work within the Digital Europe program. And we managed to get funding from 2 different consortiums. One of them is called RoboCoast, robots and coasts, not ghosts, but coast. And then Location Innovation Hub, which has something to do with the locations and the innovations. Those projects are just funded by the European Commission, and we are part of it. And we are happy to help all the other participants to join into these activities. And then we have some bold drone experiments in the northern Ostrobothnia called Droppi, which means that we are not dropping anything from the sky, but we are doing. And one of the projects we are investing into drone taxi. If you are interested for taxi drive with the drones, come back to 2025, they might have it. Like how? Like how? Just jump into the taxi and go up. Oh, cool. So it's a huge investment and involves a little bit of EASA legislation things, but they will sort it out. Thank you.
So nobody had questions or comments? I'm very happy when we come back, Maria, in 2025. We are not waiting for the ferry. We just, yeah, it will be like what is the guy named Carlson på Target? Yeah, really nice. Thank you so much. Now we will be presenting some of the results from the COAST project. And I think I will just present all of you, right? So we have 4 case studies, 1 in each country. And we have our project partners, Michael O'Boyle and Sam Hayes, Nikki Maguire and Sam Hayes again, and then Maria Vilke and Uti Virkula. And I will just present you in a short manner. So Michael, sitting here. raise your hand, is head of marine at Mayo County Council at the Department of Planning and Economic Development Council in Ireland. Mayo County Council is a key provider of economic and social development in Mayo. And then Sam works as research assistant at the University of College Cork in Ireland. He has done his PhD in Arctic coastal erosion dynamics at Northumbria University, Newcastle. Today, Sam's focus is on drones. And then we have Nikki back there. Works as a project manager in Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust in Northern Ireland. She has Masters of Science in Leadership for Sustainable Development from Queen's University Belfast. And Nikki is involved with a variety of projects and activities at CCGHT. Then we have Maria, a qualified English teacher and has done her master in coastal resource management, actually in Iceland. And today Maria works as a doctoral student at the Agricultural University of Iceland. And then we have Uchi, works as a principal lecturer at the School of Engineering and Natural Resources at the Oulu University of Applied Sciences. She is head of the master degree program, Natural Resources, and is interested in instruction in teaching, rural development, and participation. So, welcome all of you, and you have 15 minutes for each case. Yeah, else we have a coffee break, half an hour if you want to steal it. So who will start, Michael?
Yeah. Is this a Mac? No, I'm not that familiar.
Yes.
With that. Yeah, okay. So thanks everybody for giving me the opportunity to speak. I suppose I better start off by thanking the Northern and Peripheral Programme for giving me the opportunity to make all the connections with the people in our group. And I suppose it's a unique group in the sense that this is the first time we've ever met over the whole project. And actually the people in real life are more friendly than than in the Teams meeting. So I think it's a very unique group that we got on so well and did so much work together. So it was a privilege to work with everybody. And I suppose I'd also like to thank University of Cork, where we're working sort of together locally, and also my colleague Brian, who's at home watching in, who did a lot of the work in putting the project together. So just to kick off, I suppose that's a sort of a picture that the landscape in Ireland or in the northwest of Ireland, where I come from, is quite different to here. So there's a lot of hills and dales and rivers and things. So I suppose when we're looking at where we come from a local authority point of view, and when you start to think, and it's a great opportunity in this project to start thinking about a coast, what a coast really means. So there's a lot of transitions. It's a transition from land to sea. It's a transition in cultures. It's a transition particularly in peripheral areas, from the past to the future. So it's a very dynamic area, and there's a lot of issues that happen at the coast that don't necessarily happen in other places. Previous speakers have spoken a little bit about marine area planning, but in fact, you have marine area planning which works in one sort of a world, then you have the complex world of terrestrial planning which happens in another world. So at the coast is where these two big sort of issues and the big transition in a sort of an administrative world as well starts to happen. And I suppose coasts and coastal communities are at the edge of this, and local government in coastal communities then have a role to integrate both. So you have different layers. Then you have economic development, you have the social and cultural development, and you have the environmental issues, which in particular in the likes of where we are here today and in Ireland, the ecological issues are becoming more and more sensitive. So then I asked Brian one time, I rang him up and I said, Brian, I want a picture of a tree along the coastline. So usually in Brian's way, he comes up and he arrived with this picture. So I suppose the tree on the coast there, for me, is a sort of a conceptual idea of what we're trying to do in the municipal areas and also in terms of the coast project. So in terms of what I might call a sustainability tree, we're trying to grow it. We're not particularly interested in what the tree is going to, it's going to be like, but in terms of developing tools and developing the ability in coastal regions to what are the ingredients that you need in a coast to grow the tree. So obviously you're dealing with a fairly pristine and dynamic environmental groundworks. You also have the social and the traditional social issues and the economic issues, and trying to get something that's sustainable across all those areas in a coastal area is quite difficult. So that's why developing a set of tools and a set of concepts that A, the professionals can use, but B, people that are living in these communities can actually understand when you're talking to them about all these different things. And in particular, we're focusing on drones today, you know, so it's about communicating all those ideas. And in terms of Mayo, then, in terms of building the prosperity and well-being, it's about having international companies that work very well and they can actually be sustainable in these areas, and also that the people can have proper wages, but at the same time having high added value and low environmental impact. So it's a very narrow thing to get through. So that's what that thing is about. And I suppose what I wanted to just stress as well, I'm more interested in what's emerging as opposed to being over deterministic. So we're not trying to say this is going to work here. We're sort of being very sensitive, looking around at what's happening organically and then moving on. So just in Mayo then, you know, we have a lot of sustainable activities, fishing and aquaculture. I think we have the oldest aquaculture co-op, I think, in the world. Again, it's very niche. And then we're getting into marine testing, some niche developments around marine issues where the drone is where the drone case study is being used for, and also test sites, because off the west of Ireland, it's as opposed to here, the Finnish people might be the happiest people. We're the windiest people. So that's how that works. So I just put through just a bit of a context. It's not coming up all there, but in the northwest of Ireland, where I come, you're just on the, as I call it, the edge of the abyss. So once you go off 20 miles off our coast, you drop a couple of miles in depth off the Atlantic coast. So we're actually, in reality, on the edge of the abyss. And, you know, it's probably the most energy-intensive area just off our coast, apparently anywhere in the world. There are a few places in the South Pacific that are actually more energetic, but there's no landmass near them. So that's our sort of opportunity there. We have a lot of problems around trying to develop the administrative and licensing impact of. We have opportunities around marine development and sort of research is the main thing. You know, being involved, the traditional issues are sort of coming under a lot of pressure, and there's again another transition between traditional people that have worked in the coast doing traditional things and now the new blue economy where you have technologies coming in. So that's another transition. So there's all sorts of axes of transition along the coast, which is very interesting to think about. And in the northwest, over in that map, if you look, the sort of in Ireland, the more richer or the more affluent area is in the east. So in the northwest, then, because of the harsh environment, there isn't as much infrastructure. People are more isolated. The populations are lower, but at the same time, we've all this huge level of resources. Plus, we've also a huge sensitivity in relation to environmental issues with lots of designations. So to try and develop in that world is quite a challenge. So then before Sam takes over, I just want to talk about marine planning has really kicked off in the last couple of years in Mayo. So in actual fact, Ireland has the third greatest sea mass area in Europe. And it's actually almost 10 times the size of the terrestrial area or offshore area. But at the minute, we don't seem to be facing towards it at the minute, and that's a whole destination. In towards the coast, then local authorities will be responsible for a 5 kilometre or 3 nautical mile area, and I call it the Goldilocks jurisdiction because it's just right. So it's just far enough out that that development has an impact on the local coastline, but it's not too far in that that we can't do some stuff. So that's all beginning to develop in Ireland. It's a very exciting time around the coast. We'll be moving on from this to developing coastal strategies and coastal plans. So it's a very dynamic time, and it's a very apt time that this sort of coast project came up, and it gave us an opportunity that this project was going on in the background, that we could sort of think about what the coast means. And as I said, it's full of transitions, and there's great scope for developing more issues around it. So that's my sort of story. So Sam is going to do the case study in detail, but I hope I've set the context for why we want these tools. And the drones and the remote viewing, because the area is so isolated and so pristine, seems to be a key tool that we will use in the future to develop some of the data that was spoke about earlier in the Baltic Sea and on their coast, but quite a different coast, but still the tools sort of spread across, I think, all the areas in the northern peripheral area. So, Sam, you're up.
All right. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be discussing a little bit about the actual drone case studies, both for Mayo and Rathlin in a little while as well. But to start off with, most of the work we did, the main focus was to allow basic coastal managers, local authorities and stuff to get a glimpse of the potential of drone use. So the drones were kept simple. The software that was used was kind of established software, and the processing methods were kind of the most common that were out there. So it made the kind of case studies that we did accessible to the most people possible. And for Clew Bay, which is a large bay in County Mayo that's got loads of small islands in it, we're going to look at seaweed resource assessment. So this was going to be kept, once again, quite simple. Looking at, first of all, how the tidal conditions affect the ability of the drone to detect and map the seaweed. So in this instance, it was a case of looking at a high, medium, and low tides. So this is just the drone images over the same area, kind of showing those different tidal conditions and the seaweed that you can see. So one of the things to consider with this was how well the drone could detect the seaweed when it's underwater and it's darker and the color is different. And so looking at the 3 different tidal heights was a key part of that. The second part then was to look at the drone height as well. Now this was kept to within the basic A1, A3 licensing regulations as well, so up to a maximum of 120 meters. But within this, we looked at 30, 45, 60, 90, and 120 meter elevations. So these different elevations were then combined with the different tidal conditions and done across 3 main test sites that you can see here. They were typically in the range of 150 to maybe 300,000 square meters. So enough that you could capture it pretty much in a single flight, even at the low elevation. So the fieldwork was done across 3 weeks in July last year, and it was conducted with the DJI Mavic Pro 2, Mavic 2 Pro, which was provided by Mayo County Council. So for this, the DJI Pilot software was used to automate the flight routes, so that you could do direct comparisons between the different tidal conditions, for example, and know that the positioning of the drone or the orientation of the camera taking the photos didn't have an effect when comparing with the drone coverage. And the general method was like this. So we'd create an orthomosaic, which is basically a big photo made of stitching together all the smaller photos taken in a survey. We then bring them into a GIS environment and kind of align all the different orthomosaics, these large images, together to make them more comparable. After that, the images will be classified to separate out, let's say, water, land, grass, seaweed, and so on. And then the seaweed values will be extracted from those and then compared and contrasted with the different tidal conditions and flight heights. So this is like a typical drone image sequence that was used out there. So it's generally, the whole area was covered in small islands, and the seaweed tended to gather around these islands. But the area itself is generally quite shallow. I think even at its deepest, it looked like it was only a couple of meters, quite far out, even hundreds of meters out. So that allowed the visibility of the seaweed underneath the water to, well, it could be measured to a small extent at least. After that, the images are stitched together into single large images like this. And so even covering an area of a couple of 100,000 square meters, you could still get detail down to a millimeter level to see individual pebbles on a beach. So that allowed the seaweed to be mapped out pretty well. So after that, you get the classification. So this is just showing where the seaweed was classified and going in kind of closer to show a little bit of the detail as well. So you'll notice there's certain areas that are dark that do get classified as seaweed and areas that didn't get classified as seaweed. So it wasn't perfect, but it did a pretty good job of capturing most of it. And with the results then, well, there was quite a big difference when it came to the tidal conditions. So it was roughly for every meter extra in tidal height, there was about a 17% reduction in the amount of seaweed that could be detected. So this was just using a basic RGB camera, the standard one on the Mavic Pro. And then with flight height, there was very little difference. Maybe a very slight increase in coverage with flight height, but it wasn't a significant difference. Now, in the future, it would be possible to develop this further by going on and doing flights from greater heights, say above 120 meters, and bringing in sensors like near infrared to see if you can better detect the seaweed under the water. But that's stuff that can be tested out perhaps in some future projects. But yeah, that's it for now, so thanks.
So hello, as you know, my name is Nikki. I work with Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust in Northern Ireland, and our case study area in the Coast Project was Rathlin Island. So, Rathlin Island is our island. It is right at the top of Northern Ireland, so you can see over here, getting further in and further into where it is. It's an L-shaped island, and the main village, I guess, or settlement is in this bay where you can see the gold star. It's our only inhabited island in Northern Ireland. It is our most northerly point, and it's about 10 kilometres to the on-land town of Ballycastle, and it's serviced back and forth with a ferry, 2 ferries that run back and forth. Between Ballycastle and Rathlin, there's quite a swell and a mixing of tides, so actually on a day that maybe seems quite fair weather, sometimes the ferry is even called off them, and this can mean that the island can feel quite disconnected at times. The topography of the island is mostly grass, very few trees grow there, and the underlying geology then is limestone topped with hard basalt, the same basalt that makes the Giant's Causeway. So it really sits up. It sits up, it's really noticeable on our coastline, and there's a real strong sense of identity for people who live on the island as islanders, and for everybody in the area. It's really our island. Everybody visits Rathlin in their lifetime, normally in their childhood. It's where puffins migrate to mate. Over on the westerly side of the island, there's a seabird centre, so it's really part of like an educational and school trip or a family outing. So it's very sort of familiar to everybody. As I said, there's a strong cultural identity on the island. The island used to have a population of about close to 600, maybe 1,000 people, and during the famine that dramatically cut down. We now have about 150 people living on the island, with quite a few holiday homes. People move off for jobs but want to keep their family homes and their family farms. There's centuries of settlement, centuries of industry, folklore, tales, obviously some things around smuggling and whiskey trade. Beyond Rathlin is Scotland, and of course on up to Norway as well. So there's always a tale to be told there as well. So as our organisation, the Heritage Trust, we have worked with Rathlin for nearly the 20 years the organisation has been in existence, and myself for 10 years. It was the first project I worked on, and my work was with Rathlin around walking routes and access. So we're really familiar with the island, we're really familiar with the needs, the wants, and sometimes the exhaustion from being asked to be involved in projects. So we were quite well placed going into Coast to explain the project in a way and make sure that we were listening and knew then when they were reaching their limit of hearing about more European projects and concepts outside of the island. So, in collaboration with the Community Association on the island, they agreed to be the Coast case study. So, what we really wanted to do was just have the conversation. What does your coastline mean to you? What are the challenges? How can we fit that in with the Sustainable Resilient Coast project? So, there was a real big concern that the cultural history, as with population change and ageing, the cultural history of the coast was slipping away. You know, what did that mark on the stone mean? My granddad would have known, I don't really know now, he told me once. So these anecdotes were slipping away. Some things were just falling into the sea and therefore gone and never even taken a photo of. So it was getting really hit by the waves, some of the nature was changing, and even just gathering in what did exist hasn't really happened in this island yet. So local people really wanted to be the driver of their change. They wanted to shape what is going on, not so much for us to come in and tell them, as always. And also Rathlin has a spotlight within Northern Ireland. It has its own strategic policy, and this means that it gets the same spotlight as healthcare, or the same spotlight as, for instance, a new motorway consideration. So there's a lot of players around the table, a lot of stakeholders, and again, involved in so many things. Sometimes they reach capacity. Along the coast of the island and inland, even though it is a small island, there's such a mix of land ownership. Rules, regulations, and there is only one real access point onto the island, which is Church Bay in the crook of the L there. So that's where a lot of the history and the heritage would be. So we wanted to spread it out around the rest of the island. There are national organisations such as the National Trust or our Environment Agency, the Royal Protection of Birds, who own land on the island as well. So we wanted to include them, but we really wanted to focus on the people living in the island. So what we did, we set out the purpose of the project, the needs that we needed to get from the project, and asked people, okay, we're going to document some sites, where do you want? So each of the stars on the island is where the residents said, this is what we're really interested in, this is what we think we should capture to start with. So you can see in the where the village in Church Bay is, there was the kelp house, seaweed harvest house, so industry around fisheries there. We also have 3 lighthouses on this island, so they were all selected. We also had Doon Point, and we also have the rocky shore at the top of the island as well, where a lot of nesting birds are. So we had to take all of this into consideration, thinking of land ownership. Do we want to be that close to the nesting birds? Where really can we actually pick as our sites? And what are we going to do at these sites? So what we were going to do is, well, what Sam is going to do and tell you about in the next couple of slides, document them for now and for future reference, But rather than just coming onto the island, doing something and leaving, about really building capacity and making change and giving the tools to the residents, we trained 5 local people and certified them in drone training so that they can now continue to do this, build up content, look at areas of the island that's otherwise inaccessible because it's pretty high and cliffs all around. So we trained our 5 pilots. You can see down at the bottom, Teresa, who was originally working on this project, they're getting some lessons in drone training. So took a bit of time, and we were trying to always integrate this in with other things going on in the island. One of the lighthouses in the island that Sam scanned, it's going to be redeveloped as a community asset. So all of this builds into what's already going on and makes it already have a legacy before we have to think about that towards the close of the project. So I will let Sam now explain what he actually did and show you the great footage that's come out of it.
Okay. So as Nikki mentioned, those 2 sites that we focused on Rathlin. The first one that I'll talk about was the kind of geological feature that are in the images on the bottom here called Dune Point, where you have like the basalt columns and things like that. The other then was the East Lighthouse, which is situated on some pretty stunning looking cliffs and has a compound of surrounding buildings too. So the plan is to use the structure for motion photogrammetry to create 3D models of these sites. So I'll give a quick run through what structure for motion is and how it works. You can kind of have an idea of how these models are built up. So the first step, and this is just an example of a house that I did it with in Ireland, is just to take loads of photos of an object. So a drone is pretty handy with this because you can get at them from multiple different angles. So this can be done on anything from an item you can hold in your hand to an entire landscape. So the important thing is just to get enough photos, high enough quality, and from different perspectives for the processing to work. What the software would then do is it looks for distinctive features within the pictures. So features that can be identified quite easily regardless of kind of the lighting and the angle that the photos are taken from. And it then tries to match those in different images. And through doing that and having knowledge of where the camera positions were when the photos were taken, it can start to kind of reconstruct the 3D geometry of the object. And it starts by using these individual points and matching them to create a sparse point cloud, which is something like that. So you start to see the overall shape of the object. And there's all the position of that the drone was in when taking the photos. So you get these little dots at first. And when the software has this kind of information, it can start repeating that process of looking for those identifiable points and matching them across other photos too. And it kind of does this over and over to build up a denser point cloud. So you get something like this then, which starts to resemble more like the actual house. And with that dense point cloud, you can then start to create a mesh, sort of like a triangular mesh that can act as a surface for the model. And so here is the house then turned into a mesh. And after that, you add in the detail from the photos, so the color information. And that will give you then a photorealistic model like this of the house. So you can get a lot of detail from even the grass and stones and marks on the footpath, the little blotches and stuff on the roof. So it works pretty well. And even for a model like this, it might have taken a couple of dozen photos and maybe 2 hours of processing and editing to kind of get a result like this. And so this is a lot of what was done out on Rathlin to create these models. And on Rathlin, it was mostly done with it was all done with the DJI Air 2S. And so this was all flown manually around the different sites to collect the photos. And so that's the little Air 2S there. The processing was all done in Agisoft Metashape. And the software, the screen layout looks a little bit like that. And so onto the first place, which was Dune Point, that kind of geological feature. So this was done as 2 separate surveys. The first was a really detailed survey of the basalt columns themselves. So there was I don't know, probably over 50 photos of that, taken quite up close to capture lots of detail. And the second then was a high elevation flight just over the general area, so we could include the landscape at a lower resolution as well. So that's the point cloud with all the sparse point cloud with all the photos for the detail on the columns, the basalt columns, and then higher elevation flight just to capture the general landscape as well. So with the detailed section, it was all done with kind of high accuracy settings, high precision. So the processing, even though it's a much smaller area, the processing time was much longer, a couple of hours, and the file size was about 300 megabytes for the final model. For the overview, so it's covering a much larger area, but the settings were like medium accuracy, there was less photos. So it was quite a short processing time and a small final model, just about 25 megabytes. But it's a little tricky to see there, but this is showing some of the detail of the model from the up-close section with the basalt columns. You can even see some of the smaller stones to the front of it and seaweed at the bottom there too. And then the general landscape is in this one here. So that is the area where the basalt columns are, and that's kind of what it looks like when it's in the low resolution. And so the two models were then combined together to create the mixture of the low resolution general landscape plus the high resolution part of the basalt columns themselves. So there's a few small issues around where the two were blended together because the two surveys were done at separate times, but these can be fixed through editing, or now that there's plenty of drone pilots on Rathlin, they can go out and do all this stuff again and capture as much detail as is needed. So this is a small video of the fly-through. Yeah, get it to work. So this will show the overall landscape then. So it'll capture some of the small beaches, the general topography of the place. You can see some of the seaweed there as well. And then it zooms in so you get the detail of the basalt columns themselves. And so overall it worked out pretty well. And yeah, there's potential there for the other pilots to kind of add to this and develop on it and make it a regular monitoring exercise to just see if there's any changes or erosion. So the next one then was the East Lighthouse. So with the actual lighthouse building itself, once again, this was done in higher resolution. So up close, lots of photos. And then the rest of the compound was lower resolution again. So mostly high elevation or further off photos to capture the cliffs and the other buildings. So that's the sparse point cloud of the actual lighthouse and some of the position of the drone images. And then there's the general landscape. So probably about the same amount of images for each. And so here's the landscape done without the lighthouse. And then once again, the two separate surveys are combined together to create a higher or mixed resolution final model. Now, with the lighthouse itself, you can see there was some issues up around the top here. Part of the problem with this was that while we had permission to survey the lighthouse and the compound, we couldn't survey from within the grounds itself. So it was difficult to get the drones close to the lighthouse safely to get the appropriate images. On top of that, this kind of software and this method struggles quite a lot when you have reflective surfaces and mirrors and that too. When it tries to calculate the geometry, it can be a little bit tricky. But the good thing about this is that later on, if the photos are gotten from there, you could get inside with a handheld camera. You can follow the same method with those photos and kind of edit the model again and improve it. So that's just, yeah, the comparison with the actual one. Kind of the small details of those like metal rods and stuff are tricky to get when you can't get up close and get the necessary detail in the photos. But the rest of the model worked quite well. So this shows the general area. So you have the different buildings on the surface there, which are all captured quite well. You've got the kind of stony, steep slope and the cliffs, and the detail on all of those came out pretty good in the end. And there's other cave features and stuff around as well that were captured a little bit. But yeah, overall the models worked quite well. And as mentioned already, with all the drone pilots out there now, there's the potential to build on all this and analyze stuff over time and how everything changes. And yeah, back to Nikki to finish off.
So as Sam has already said, we have people trained now, so more of this can be captured. And not only for the photogrammetry and the capturing of sites like this, even just pictures of parts of the coast that have just never even been taken before, that we can capture now and look back on in years to come. Coastal monitoring is a big focus in Northern Ireland at the minute. We are having a Northern Ireland-wide LiDAR survey of all of our land and coast, completed by our government, and it will be free to share data. So that's going to be fantastic for us in a lot of the work that we do, especially at the Giant's Causeway and especially now on Rathlin as well. So we're hoping to add to this as time goes on, but there was a conversation that was coming up all the time, well, sort of, so what? If you have this done and it goes and lives in a hard drive somewhere, so what? Like, what did that do for our community? So the conversation has come around to the need for access to this, the need to build to it. Where are the drone trainees going to put their information? So we're developing a digital heritage map due in August 2022, so in the middle of this summer, where we're going to put this information and start capturing a lot of the other coastal heritage and also those fantastic coastal habitats and information. We can even pop up things like, you know, new research coming up, please click to get involved. You know, Maritime Heritage Festival on, do you have resources? Do you have old photos you could bring to this? There's a new marine plan coming out, click here for more information. And this will be used by visitors and islanders to raise the profile and raise that information out there, because complicated text in long government documents isn't really what most people are reading at home. So we thought this is a much better way to get the information out, and it will look similar to the image that is there, where the fly-throughs will be put in as a video, and we can also then relay the information. It will click through to Coast as well, and we can have that geo-referenced on the island itself. So we're working away on that and hoping that this is now the legacy already coming to life before the end of the summer, and we look forward to sharing that more with you as well. Thank you. Thanks to Sam.
Okay, thanks so much. The mic is still, it's all fine? Okay, cool. I'm Maria. I'm here from the Agricultural University of Iceland, and I'm going to talk to you about the coast case study in Iceland, which was held in the Westfjord. So here are a few pictures that you can sort of more or less see. Our team was not just me. I'm here with Ragnheiður, who's the rector of the uni, but there was also Sigga, Christian, and Tryggvi involved in the case study, but they didn't. They can make it here. So we represent the Icelandic side of the Coast project today. Just to give you an idea where we're talking about, these are the Westfjords situated in Iceland in the sort of northwest of the country. You can see they're almost an island. They're kind of this peninsula sticking out. I always think it looks a bit like a claw that's coming out of Iceland. And here you can see on the bigger map that it's basically characterized by deep fjords, high mountains, very steep cliffs, and very small settlements. You can't see that they're small, but trust me, they are. So I'm based in Ísafjörður, if I can. And just to give you an idea, it takes about 5 to 6 hours to drive to Reykjavik from there. So it's quite, what we'd call remote. Now, the Westfjords case study looked a little bit into marine planning. We've heard a little bit about marine spatial planning before in general, and also Michael was talking about it a little bit, and Nikki touched on it as well. So the Westfjords case study looked into, okay, how do marine planning and communities, especially the Westfjords local communities, go together? How are they involved? What's going on there? the reason why we focused on marine spatial planning in the Westfjords case study is that it's just new to Iceland. It's the first time that Iceland is undertaking marine spatial planning. I've also shortened it here to MSP, so that's just marine spatial planning. In Iceland, they're calling it coastal and marine planning, but it's basically different countries use different terms, meaning the same thing. So the idea about marine spatial planning is that a lot of people come together that are affected by the potential plan. So people living at the coast, people having economic stakes in the area. So that would include fishermen, people in shipping, tourism, and so on, but also just local people who live there. And kind of defining, okay, where do we want our coastal or marine area to go? What do we want to do with these fjords, potentially in this case, yeah? So hopefully it can be used for ecosystem-based ocean and coastal management is kind of the fancy term for it. So you look at, okay, what environment is there? Where are crucial habitats? Is there any, seabird breeding sites? Are there marine mammals that are migrating through there, and so on and so forth? And who is using it, and how can we make this sustainable? Because we want the animals and the plants to survive, but we also want the humans to be able to live there into the future. So one of the main ideas is that there are obviously conflicts of interest by different users. How can we minimize these to arrive at a sensible ocean and coastal use? And then where I come in is maybe this point here where education and capacity building are extremely important for MSP to be successful at all, to be sustainable, and to kind of just survive. Because if there's a plan on paper and nobody really cares about it, it just kind of dies. So in Iceland, we have this kind of what you could call overuse of the fjords. There are many industries wanting space and resources from the same areas. For example, fishing, tourism, which comes in the form of cruise ship tourism these days, shipping, and the new one on the block is aquaculture and fish farming. That's one of the newest industries, and it's booming. And it has created a bit of tension and a few questions on how this can go forward. Now, in Iceland, on land planning is usually done by municipalities. And this is kind of going back to what Michael was referring to earlier. There is a bit of a question mark and an overlap of planning responsibilities and jurisdictions. And on land, municipalities tend to do the executive planning. What are we doing in our municipality? Now, their jurisdiction only extends to 115 meters into the sea. But a lot of the activities at sea are further outside. So the middle of the fjords, they cannot say any sort of decisive things about that. And in Iceland, there's no regional governments, so it would go to a national institution. So what has changed is that in 2018, there was a law that came through on planning of the marine and coastal area, and we have a national planning agency that has put together working groups to start doing this. And the first areas you can see there marked in red are the West Fjords, the insides of the fjords, and in the east of the country, the East Fjords as well. And the top is when the East Fjords and West Fjords have a plan, they will concentrate on the north, which is Eyjafjörður and Skjálfandi Bay. And these are also the areas that I've looked at and I will talk about more in detail. So why have we looked into participation? Well, that's kind of the element that connects the planning and the communities, of course, which is what COAST is interested in. Interestingly, having meaningful public participation is in the theory also said to basically legitimize and democratic marine spatial planning processes. So there should be a degree of involvement by the public. Ideally, the idea is that then that would raise the knowledge about the ocean, about the resources and the value of the resources, and that communities would be able to make informed decisions about their local space. There should be a degree of empowerment, and what I find really interesting is that we've heard a little bit about co-creation as well before, so that ideally it would empower some local communities to go forth and make their own decisions, at least to an extent, and to be part of the decision. Obviously, this should be based on some of the local knowledge, and this touches a bit on what Nikki said about the, the stories that come from the people of the place, because they know the place well. And I'm going to keep this very short. Basically, what I was looking at, or we were looking at, is, okay, so marine planning is new in Iceland. is there a unique context that we need to take into consideration, politically, governance-wise, and also environmentally? Because Iceland and the Westfjords have a very different sort of setup and environment than other coasts. How does participation actually work in this process? And how does it compare internationally? And in this case, it'll be a comparison to the north of Norway. The main methods that we've used is basically interviewing, although in the Westfjords, which is my main case study, we obviously looked at literature, we looked into some grey literature and the documents of the planning agency and the sort of the governance documents. I've done a lot of participant observation, living in the Westfjords, living in the community to see, you know, what is going on, who is involved, how are they involved, who's making decisions, and also crucially, who isn't. So that led to a lot of field notes and sort of casual encounters before I could set up some more structured interviews with key informants. I also did a public online workshop, and you can see the flyer to this workshop in the corner there. So that was held last year in May. So that was to inform the community, but at the same time give some sort of a platform for discussion and finding, you know, basically raising questions and also gathering some questions that people may have about this process. I also went to Húsavík in Skjaldmøni Bay. This was the middle northern part of Iceland that was in purple before. I worked on 2 other projects and collaborated with them, which gave me access to the community. And I also did interviews there, because this will be kind of the next place in line where marine planning is happening. And if you haven't heard about this place, it's the whale watching capital of Iceland. And people are very aware of needing the whales to stay and be healthy in order to live and survive economically in the area. So that's an interesting one to see what people think about marine planning and how they want to be involved. I did an exchange to Norway and had the luck to be working with people who could connect me to some of the planning authorities in the very north of Norway, in Troms. And I interviewed the planning coordinator who had basically coordinated a similar planning endeavor. So they also have different municipalities, and they have a lot of aquaculture, a lot of sort of tensions around that, and how they sort of went and got on with it. And all of this led to over 70 transcripts from interviews that have all been coded and themed and analyzed, which I'm not going to go into much detail about here, because this would take forever. I'm just going to give you some rough ideas about some results. So basically what's common across all of these is, okay, there is some sort of overuse or multiple use and interests on these areas. People seem to agree that some sort of management or planning is needed, and we should do this, it's a good idea. But there are different interests to balance out, to do this, yeah, with, you know, as many people coming out of it happy as possible, if that's even possible. There are a lot of tensions and unresolved conflicts, especially around fish farming. That is especially true for the Westfjords and the Eastfjords of Iceland, which are also primarily the locations where fish farming is happening because of the sheltered fjords. Now, what you need to know about the communities in the Westfjords is that it's not really such a unified region as you might think, because maybe that's a bit different to these island case studies that we have, where they're like, yes, we are from this island. Because there's so many mountains and valleys and fjords in between, they're cut up into different municipalities, and it doesn't seem to be like a common sense of, we will do this with the Westfjords. So the northern towns are in a slight rivalry with the southern towns and so on. So it's a very different issue to try and do community engagement there and gather some local opinions. About this ongoing planning process, a lot of the local community members seemed rather uninformed, seemed not to be involved as much, and seemed to sort of have a lot of questions. Who's doing this? What's going on? Tell me more about this. Some sort of had some negative feelings about it, not in terms of they're doing it wrong, but in terms of, I don't know what's going on. I feel like a little bit of anxiety about this now. So what I can tell from the documentation and also my data, my interviews, is that there is a rather passive participation strategy in this case, And that may lead to some apathy in the communities. That they're like, oh, what's going on? I don't know. Why should I participate? What will that even do? So it seems to be, at the moment, a rather top-down process. I could identify some what we call barriers to participation, so reasons why participation might be low. This doesn't always come just from the process, can also have reasons in the context and in the community. It has to do with trust in authorities, of course, and all of those things. But what I do identify is that there's a huge potential to address some of these and sort of help communities participate more in the future. So these two plans that are currently being worked on are pilot plans, so they're the first ones. So that obviously opens up doors to, try something else next time or try something more. We're planning on publishing different papers about this. I'm not going to go into much detail about this because I know we're short on time. So I'll finish it here, and thanks a lot.
Okay. Hi all, my name is Outi, and as said, I represent Oulu University of Applied Sciences as most of the people in the audience today. Hello colleagues here and there. I'm a bit nervous, but I'm also excited to be here, and since I'm nervous, I'm relying on the notes for the first time in my life in my presentation. Take it or leave it. Yes, in the presentation, I will tell you about our cooperation with the municipality of Hailuoto. That was, and has been said already, is one of the case study areas in the COAST project. This presentation has been done together with Kati Tervo. Hey, Kati Tervo. Okay, first, we will shortly tell you why we decided that we want to cooperate with Hailuoto. Why do we want to have Hailuoto as an associate partner for the COAST project? Then we share you a vision or a definition of small sustainable municipalities, since the definition comes very close to what we aim at supporting in the COAST project. Yes, then we give you information about our cooperation in numbers and in detail, what we have actually done and accomplished during the project. Yes, we discuss the results of various engagement activities and understand the complexity when enhancing sustainable development on a municipal scale. Towards the end of the presentation, we defined the preliminary themes of the Sustainability Action Plan to be finalized and delivered to the municipality in August this year. And then, at the very end, we discuss shortly about the concept of resilience, and we aim at grasping the meaning of resilience of Hailuoto. We'll see how that goes. Yes. Why Hailuoto? As pointed out earlier today in Maarit's presentation, Hailuoto is a unique place regionally, nationally, and also internationally. On the Finnish scale, Hailuoto is one of the kind. It is a coastal community and also a municipality where officials are strongly committed to enhancing sustainable development. They are also committed to building a better future for the nature and generations to come. Identifying such commitment by the local authorities was highly important when inquiring about their interest to become an associate partner for the project. As we know, in the COAST project, local authorities are the main target group, so it was really handy to have them on board. In the very beginning, a shared understanding of the contents and aims of the project was established together with the representatives of Hailuoto. Oh yes, and the commitment of the people from Hailuoto has made the cooperation throughout the project very easy. So we thank you for that. Before we dig deeper into the specifics, let us introduce you to the vision for small sustainable municipalities. Can you see it, Ragnheider? It was introduced by the Association of Finnish Local and Regional Authorities in February this year. And it goes, small municipalities are close to people. Their operating culture is agile, fast, and innovative. A small municipality offers life often close to nature. Spacious and comfortable living environment is part of multi-location lifestyle. Internet connections that work with unlimited speed enable work and do business place independently. Having the privilege to get to know Hailuoto municipality better, we could claim that the vision is already a reality in Hailuoto. Perhaps the following slides will prove our point. For us at OAMC, the cooperation with Hailuoto local authorities meant engagement. In the project proposal, it is called co-design. We saw that nothing could be done without discussing it and deciding on it first with the representatives of Hailuoto. The key persons from the Hailuoto end have been the former municipal manager, Mr. Aki Heiskanen, the acting municipal manager, Maarit Alikoski, and our VIP experts, Annukka Loukola here, and Saana Peurasaari somewhere in Oulu today. I use this opportunity to thank you all for your time and effort. In the project, the engagement shows, for instance, in the number of meetings and other encounters. So-called official meetings had agendas and memos. For other appointments, like participating in Siikamarkkinat, the white fish fair, shown in the picture, notes were taken and people listened to carefully. In addition to in-person and in Teams meetings, a lot of emails were exchanged and phone calls made. Yes, people from Hailuoto were engaged also in other ways. A future workshop was organized in November 2020 for the key municipal officials of Hailuoto. Stakeholder mapping was made February 2021 as a part of the preparations for the scenario workshops. We thought that it was necessary to figure out who to reach for the workshops. The mapping was done in close cooperation with the representatives of Hailuoto. And in the end, 3 scenario workshops were planned to organize in the spring 2021, 2 of them online and 1 here in Hailuoto. This didn't go as planned, but 2 online workshops, first for municipal officials and councillors, and then for entrepreneurs and associations, were arranged. During the workshops, it became clear that there was a very important target group missing from our activities, that is, the youth. For them, an online event called Climate Coffee Break was organized together with 2 other projects. And also at the Whitefish Fair, we gave particular attention to the youth. Later, autumn 2021, an online survey about the sustainable development work in the municipality was disseminated via the municipality's webpage and via Facebook. Yes. In practice, promoting sustainable development is complicated. It is a collection of acts, big and small. To reconcile these acts in such a way that promoting one would not harm the other is tricky business. The quote has been lent from the Finnish e-learning website since it nicely highlights the complexity of doing sustainable deeds. The picture has been taken on the Whitefish Fair last October. Passers-by got to take part in voting on the order of the decomposing time of various waste components. These were, for instance, dog's poo, a cigarette butt, a face mask, and a soda can. While deciding on the order, other environmental issues were discussed and opinions and concerns exchanged. Close to 40 people participated, and the general view was that in Hailuoto, environmental things are taken care of, and the main issues to be addressed next have been already identified. The same observation was made from the results of the survey, to which we don't have any time to go into in detail. Let's just say that Hailuoto's way of life has been seen as a strength. The results indicated a strong commitment to sustainable development work and responsible strategic development in the municipality. As opportunities could be mentioned valuable habitats on the island, natural assets in general. Also, various possibilities to live and work a multi-location life were appreciated. In the survey, not everything was jointly agreed or disagreed upon. The points shown in the slide are presented in random order and could be regarded as feedback for the municipality. Pay attention, Annukka. The image of the island has, as a responsible cultural and nature tourism location, requires strong measures from the municipality. The municipality promotes sustainable land use. The sustainable development work on the municipality is communicated openly and transparently. Yes, the results of the various engagement activities that has been done within the COAST project has been now summarized into 3 main themes and 1 cross-cutting theme. These are to do with sustainable tourism, respect for nature, and participation, all of which are familiar to our partners in the municipality. So what the results show is actually nothing drastically new, but rather something to which the municipality has already paid a lot of attention. The themes and suggestions for the next steps will be found in the Sustainability Action Plan, finalized in August. Right, lastly, a few words about the concept of resilience. It is stressed in the name of the project and discussed within the islanders, for instance, in the scenario workshops. It became obvious that the resilience of Hailuoto is actually the way of life on the island. It is particular, but also agile and capable of adapting oneself to the ever-changing times. The report of Hailuoto's past, present, and future takes a closer look at this way of life. It is actually a video recording to be shown in the project YouTube later, right? And maybe today here in the conference room, right, Jukka? Fingers crossed, maybe? Yeah. Yeah, could be. During the coffee break? Yeah, hopefully so. Anyway, in the recording made at OAMK, the resilience of Hailuoto is made explicit, so hopefully you have time to watch it later. This is all from our part. I thank you for your participation, and it's time for the coffee break, isn't it?
And it's been our job in this project to create the toolbox, but this was completely done in collaboration. And the whole project has been about the partners working together. So we had Iceland looking after us. They're the purple box on the outside. We had Mayo making sure that we stayed in contact and communication, told people what we were up to in our Sustainable Resilient Coast project. And then we had 3 work packages. So to go from from left to right, work package 2 was University College Cork. And this was a lot of the drone work, a lot of the drone research papers submitted to journals as well. So this was the technical side of it that the rest of us sort of had to read through the papers and glean some information and kept well away from the expensive drones. Cork also undertook a lot of the fieldwork, as you have already heard today, for some of the rest of our partners, and the data, the information we've got out of that is fantastic. You can see then at the top, we have our Finnish partners who are looking at, I suppose, really explaining and teasing out of us how we really work with our communities, how we build capacity, how we can take stock of where we are and look to the future during future action plans. But just writing all of this and working on this for 2 years, it has to go somewhere. We want to share this information out. We want to use this as the whole project as a case study for how we can work together, learn from each other, and from the case studies mentioned today, everybody has tackled a different aspect of our coastal rural communities issues, be it from marine plans through to monitoring vegetation and seaweed, through to ourselves where we were trying to give the community a voice to capture and digitise their coastal heritage. So with this wealth of ideas, wealth of information, the project was born and we have delivered it, and we want to put that forward in what we have down in the blue box, which is the final report, how did we get on, and the toolbox. So I'm using the word toolbox as this is the word used in the application and familiar to many people who've worked on European projects. So the toolbox was thought up maybe 4 or 5 years ago now as a step-by-step approach of the Coast project application of how we can really bring sustainable development into our coastal, rural and peripheral communities. It was to be a tool used by stakeholders to help meet management needs. So that's quite a chunky sentence of what we were going to do. Added in with all of these other words as well throughout it, we were going to use drones, see how we can build capacity, bring together a suite of tools, look at coastal futures, look at stakeholder mapping. We all do this, we all go out and talk to people, but do we actually have a methodology behind it that others can learn from and that we can learn and improve through peer mentoring as well? We also wanted to demonstrate our 4 case studies. They're also different, also unique, like our communities, but we can learn from each of them, get inspiration from amazing videos created elsewhere, and bring a bit of humour to what we can all do sometimes quite with a work head on. And it was really important for us that there was the environmental, social and economic side of the issues and the opportunities that our coastal communities face was brought together in this toolbox as well, because that really is what is important. As we heard from Maria, people are very concerned about keeping the whales in Northern Iceland because they make a living from it. So the environment and the economy are intrinsically linked there. So, figuring out what a toolbox meant, I had no clue. I joined the project 1.5 years into the project lifespan, which is now overall 2.5 years. So I had a lot of catching up to do last September, figuring out what the project was, hearing everybody's ideas. Everybody had taken the project and heard something different from it, brought something different to the table, had a unique skill set coming together, and I was really focusing on what is this end product going to be? We have a wealth of experts, we have a wealth of ideas. How are we going to capture this in one place? So I started, looked through the application, all of those key buzzwords, what we committed we were going to do. Really got chatting to everybody, figuring out what each work package was doing, speaking to each partner, forecasting out a timeline of a countdown to the end of the project as well. And then we started into the work of, okay, who is this toolkit for? We said one thing 3-4 years ago, what's the truth of it now? Because this project started in COVID, so things really had changed. We had to set out what is actually going to be in this, physically or electronically, I suppose. We ranged from videos through to PhD research papers, through to podcasts, and through to case study write-ups as well. So we had to figure out what everybody was bringing to the table, and then we had to figure out where on earth can this sit? Can it sit in a Spark PDF that might end up 300 pages long? Could it be in a story map that your hand would probably fall asleep scrolling down through? And we end up settling through a pros and cons approach on a website platform or host it within a website. And one of the main reasons for that is we can all create a website. The money of the project ends, and then who looks after the website? So part of our thoughts around environment, legacy, sustainability, the website, what our work needs to have a lifespan as well. So it was decided then through project agreement, we would have a website. And from then we still had a bit more to figure out. So you can see we worked through lots of my diagrams all the way through trying to figure out this web of information. So then we came to the development. So we had agreed on a website. We now needed somebody to put their hand up and say, I'll host it, I'll help make it. So we all sort of looked at each other on Teams going, anybody going to bite the bullet and do this? So Mayo County Council have taken on hosting the website. They have a strong website, they have a strong IT department, and unlike ourselves, that has longevity long beyond the project. Our website, the framework actually needed changed about 3 years ago, and we thought we might lose the whole thing. And I'm certainly no IT expert, but I was trying to figure that out. So what we actually did then, once we had agreed that we will take on the coordination of pulling this toolbox of information together and that Mayo County Council would host it, myself and my colleague Jamie just started going about what needs done, when it needs done. So we briefed all the partners, and we did this really collaboratively throughout the project to agree deadlines, set out what needed done. We then used Teams, as we have all been using for all of the pandemic now, and set up a filing system to start bringing in that content, much of which partners had already made because we've been working on this project. Sam had done a lot of the work out and about. And then we held team meetings, keeping on top of it all. We then went through the deadlines, what time things needed done, where is it going to be. And in the background then, Brian from Mayo County Council was developing the website structure. So he worked with us and all of the partners to bring everything in and actually get it. And everybody has different priorities, everybody has different deadlines, different annual leave, and we're trying to keep to, a 3-4 week turnaround here. So, it definitely is a challenge, as it is in any project, but transnationally, when you're not sure other places' public holidays or way of going, took a bit of work for us to get as well. And it's one of the positives I find in a project, sort of chill out about the 12 o'clock noon deadline and you're like, try and get it by the end of the week and have that. As a partnership, we also just went in, reviewed the website, had looks at it, and it is live and able to be navigated now. I'm hoping if I click this it will come up. Here you can see a screenshot from the toolbox of the website itself, and maybe if IT can help bring up the webpage. Oh, yes, I have it. Well, I have it here. It comes up on the screen. Cheers.
Yeah.
So this is our toolbox. As you can see at the top, it's on mayo.ie. And this is where you can read all about what we've been talking about today. It sets out what the project is and where it is, because in 3 years' time, we may have moved on from our roles, other people will come across the page. They need to know what point in time was this created, who we were, why we were, what we are doing through the MPA project, and we've tried to also make the content engaging throughout. So if I scroll down, if I scroll down, you can see our suite of resources put together, mostly by Brian and Michael as well. So you can find out information on the partners, we can go through to our action plans, what's coming out of everything, through to our capacity building. There will be content in the conference section once we have rounded up today, I guess. But most importantly, there is the toolkit. The toolkit itself is a set of 24 information cards or pages where it's trying to bring a coastal and a rural community perspective on explaining all of these brilliant but probably quite hard to understand at times terms. From PESTEL, SWOT, we go on down, we have integrated coastal management, through to bioregioning as well. And this was what everybody was bringing to the table. So Maria has contributed on bioregioning. And if somebody gives that a Google now, they don't have to go to 3 and 4 places. They're working on the coast. They can come in and see it here along with other ideas. And that for us, along with everybody in the project, has been what we've been building towards. An index of terms, an index of ideas of how we can operate to support our coastal communities, right through from how to use social media effectively in what can be quite a sparsely populated area, how also do you stakeholder mapping to not just speak to that same audience of your 3 or 4 local residents who will come to every meeting going. You need to engage the youth, we need to be on podcasts, we need to get those people who never come to things because they will have information we haven't heard and can really change how something is viewed within a community as well. We go on down to more terms which if anybody has studied some business or planning will see that we have Porter's 5 forces, we go straight down to future Earth coasts as well. So these 24 cards are going to be developed more and more as the project continues through into the middle of the summer, as now we have finally met and I think got even more to grips with the project than we started with. Whenever you click into, I'm going to click this one, and whenever you click into one of the cards, there's a variety of information and tools then. Again, we're trying to be really engaging. Oh, hello. Do you want some of the spotlight too? We've tried to make it really engaging, not just pages and pages of text. You can get that from a textbook. We've tried to bring together what already exists and add it to the expertise developed through this project, and highlight those things that are relevant to communities rather than resources that always talk about cities of, 1 million people. And an example in a really large city, Rathlin Island has 160 people. So many things are not transferable or comparable at that rate. You can see we have navigation bars throughout, which means we can add, edit and change as time goes on. And you can come back then as well to the rest of the information which links through to yourselves as partners. And if this project then continues in a second phase, we can develop onto this as well. I am hoping to go back to the PowerPoint. I am not a Mac user, so I'm lost. Thank you. So we have created this toolbox and this toolkit out of everything that's come together, the culmination. And when I think back to last September when I was reading through the application and coming to my first Teams meeting to sit on the side of it and just hear what was happening and thinking, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't really know what this means. This to me is going to really improve my work. Also people who come in and work on research with us. This is here. It's the resource we can direct them to that has been the missing link in what we have wanted, and it also shows how bringing different education perspectives together from university to people working in the funded sector. We're bringing them together in one place and rather than working in silos. CCGHT is a partner organisation, so we work with government, community, and often a big part of the job is just making the language more friendly, more inviting, and this project has really been, I think, an example of and a highlight of how we do our work. So the toolbox is there. You're all welcome to visit it. We will be running analytics on it as well, so hit refresh lots of times. So thanks to Brian, who really pulled this together and has been on the emails to me, Nikki, what do you think of this? These videos aren't really loading. So he's been doing the work in the background that is not really for me. So happy to launch the toolbox, but we also need to monitor and review, as we do with so much of what we've said today around data collection and creation. So where the toolbox is now going, we're going to have more content on it by August. Mayo are expecting to develop this through the marine plan development across the county and in the area. And we're going to have all of us partners in it championing this. We've created it because there was a need for it. There's information in it. So we're going to continue to champion this and hope that the MPA does that as well. But we also have to look at a few of the lessons we've learned along the way. a lot has been said around COVID, around the fact we hadn't met each other. We were all just boxes on a screen, normally with my despairing face in those first few months going, okay, we need a timeline, we need a deadline, what are we going to do? So certainly this project did suffer from COVID because collaboration really takes, I think, personal engagement as well. So we can learn from that we will hopefully not have to tackle a project like that again, but also just become better communicators online. Agreement across the partnership is crucial. Everybody needs to be going towards the one goal. There needs to be agreement, which means compromise. So everybody needs to be happy and there needs to be feedback then about getting towards this one goal. Everybody came with a lot of ideas, and it's also about managing expectations. Taking the ideas and not saying no to anybody's skill set or aspirations, but managing expectations that a 300-page PDF isn't probably going to be as engaging as a website, and let's look at this a different way as well. So it's about hearing it and taking some time and working as colleagues, not just partners that we see each other on Teams every couple of weeks. The topic itself, I found, is really wide-reaching. The land areas, it's a transnational project, so the jurisdiction is massive, and we're talking about planning policy, which even in our area, each municipality is going to have its own planning policy. I work across 2 of them, they're quite different, it's really hard, never mind international borders. It's a lot to take in. That was definitely one of the challenges, even around to the terminology of, we talk about council areas, others talk about municipalities. Planning can be done by highest level government, lowest level government, local people. So there was a lot of learning to go on there as well. So sort of lesson learned in the terminology, and I suppose setting that out at the start. One of the biggest lessons learned actually from another European project, the platform must be ongoing. I've mentioned this a few times. It just has to be. We can't put in this effort for it to be gone by next week. So that material will now continue. And I have said again that COVID really did impact the project. It did lead to delays as well. I mean, many of the team were sick at different times, priorities changed in organisations, and even staff changes within teams as time goes on. A lot of that can be par for the course in a European project that spans over 2 years, but certainly in this last, I've been on it a year, in this last year it definitely has been slightly different to other projects I've worked on, but we've achieved a really good outcome, I feel. I'm very pleased. Everybody, we had the push to put everything that we've been working on together and develop the toolbox that hopefully reflects what everybody was hoping to get out of this project, and that we've also established relationships, connections, finally been able to come to Finland and see what we were talking about and really bring to life what was on paper 4 years ago in an application, and show to the MPA that coastal communities and rural populations really do have a voice, can speak for themselves and can drive change. So that's it. Hopefully our toolbox represents that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Any questions or comments to Nikki or to the case studies before? Everything clear? Okay. Then Graham has asked for...
Thank you very much, I can do that.
For the spotlight.
I felt a bit of a fraud because nearly everybody else involved in the project has said, given a presentation, I said a few words. I thought it would be useful or, well, vital for you to hear me speak. One of the things about projects like this is communication and language. And over the last couple of days, we've been speaking about language a great deal. And those regions in the NPA, Scotland, the Republic of Ireland, and Northern Ireland, we don't really bother with your languages. And we've been talking about Scots Gaelic over the few days, Welsh, Irish, but you guys are all extremely proficient in our English, our primary used English language, which is English. I do have one Welsh word though. You mentioned earlier on the very short-named municipality here. And there's a place in Wales called Llanfair with Gwyngyth Gogo, Drop with Angi Slio Gogo. I mentioned language in particular because there's a phrase in English. Who's heard this phrase? If at first you don't succeed, try, and try again. Have you heard that?
Yes.
Well, you probably didn't hear that phrase was first come up with underneath the East Light on Rathlin Island. So Robert the Bruce, who was King of Scotland, had been defeated at the Battle of Mydwen, I think it was, by Edward I of England. Edward, who was known as the Hammer of the Scots. So Robert the Bruce left Scotland, he fled, and hid in a cave on Rathlin Island. And in that cave, there was a spider. And the spider started coming down its thread and tried to climb up its thread and couldn't get there. It fell again and climbed and couldn't get there. And eventually it got to the very, very top. So Bruce said to himself, if I can do this, if the spider can do this, I can do this, I can try again. So Robert the Bruce went back to Scotland. Edward I, Hammer of the Scots, had died. He was replaced by his son, who wasn't quite as proficient a soldier as Edward I. And famously, Bruce came back to Scotland, regained the kingdom, and beat the English at the Battle of Bannockburn. Incidentally, I went to university in Belfast in 1985. I went to this place, my second night, I went to a place called the Botanic Inn. Nicky would know the Botanic Inn very well. It's a famous bar in South Belfast. And one of the first people I ever met was a Scots guy. And I said, oh, I'm from South Shields in the northeast of England. Where do you come from? He said, where every good Englishman is. And I said, where's that? And he said, Bannockburn. I mentioned that story not only because of the Rathlin Island link, but because of this programme. I think some of us were about when we first started developing the programme in 2017. Val Cummins from UCC, who has now left, was the project leader. We put in an application in the 5th round of NPA and weren't successful. But the word came back from our friends in Copenhagen that it was quite a good application. If you change this and change that, you might have a chance next time. So came to the 6th call. We put in a stronger application and we weren't successful. And we thought that was the end of NPA. Val, we didn't know at the time, was ready to leave and didn't have the time and effort to put in an application. What became the 7th call, which was an extension of the programme, but our friends in the Agricultural University of Iceland and Ragan Heather and a team did that. And because we tried again, we were successful in getting an application. And I think from all the presentations we've seen today, all the experience we've got, the partnership, the communication, the long-lasting toolbox, I think we can all say it was really, really worth it. And I think also, the first time we've met together, I think we probably have quite a number of long-term friendships that we'll have in the future and hopefully work together again. So that was all I wanted to say, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Graham. You actually have summed everything up, so I can close. I just want to say that this has been one of the great projects where all partners just do the jobs, and then now we stand at the end of the project, and then we have done everything that we promised to do, even in spite of COVID and not being able to meet in persons before now. We all had bought tickets to UCC. Was it in March 2020? Yes. So yeah, and then we planned for some meetings and always had to postpone it. So I'm very happy that we got the 6 months extension. It was planned for a 2 years project, and we're able to meet here now. And it's funny when you meet people that you have been talking to on Teams for almost 2.5 years, that you almost know each other. And I have one funny story about that also, that I had been meeting a lady that was on a cost action, And then we met in the Gran Canaria for a meeting, and then she said, "No, we finally meet." And I was like, "What do you mean? We have met each other often before." And she was, no. And I was so sure we had met so often. So I was like, "What's wrong with this lady?" and she really had to convince me that this was really her first meeting, and we never met before. And I was like, this lady is closer to my kids in age than to me. So they asked me now, "How can this lady be your friend, Mom? Because, she should be our friend." But as it developed, this is actually one of my dearest friends living in Slovenia. But this first time we met, I was like, I really feel I know you so well. and then she said to me, "Well, I feel the same way. And actually, you look like my best friend in Slovenia, just much older." So this is how things can develop. And I told my kids that if they behave well, they maybe can become her friends eventually also. But this is actually, as I felt yesterday evening when we arrived here, that when you said in the hall there, that I felt really that I had met you all before. Really, so good to be here. But summing up, as Nikki said, and I remember your face. How are we going to do this? Coming in late into the project, and we actually have had many new people coming in during this very short project period, and even the most I would say the drivers in the project, as Sarah doing all the drone papers and the reports and so, and then she left, and then Jessica came in, and she also was the same. So even in spite of that, getting new people all the time, and also here in Finland, you were all getting, we lost Antti, and then you had newcomers, and then they went out, so you were, and Kati came in. So it's amazing that we now are standing here and have done such a good job, so thank you all for that. I was just writing down words when you were all talking, and as Nikki said, this was a lot of things and a lot of different things, and I was actually like just a few things, and I'm not even taking the whole list, but data gathering and analysis, new technology, regulations and rules, expertise and know-how, and stakeholder interaction, different interests, transdisciplinary collaboration, international teamwork, risk assessment, new opportunities and challenges, and then ecosystems, endangered species, pollution and climate changes, culture and history, and coastal heritage, marine spatial planning, and so on and so on. Very different things, but actually we are joining it together in this toolbox. So I would like to thank you all for participating, and especially the presenting people, and Oulu University of Applied Sciences, and for preparing everything and doing such a great job. And we have actually now 2 websites, and they link to each other back and forth, so you should be able to find some things. So we have a mini website under NPA, and then we have the toolbox under Mayo website, and if you find one of them, you will find the other ones. So. But thank you so much for this interesting day, and for the good presentations also this morning from people that are working on similar things. So thank you all. Looking forward to next project.